So I would go flag races, and I was walking back from flagging the race, and then I look at the house and my stomach just sinks. The fucking car is up into the corner of the house, and the front bumper is showing through into the living room. And it's just left there. Like, it's just hanging out, sitting up into the house. So I walk in, and my mom is in the house, and I'm like, what the fuck? There's a 22, which I knew there was a 22 rifle in the house. There's a 22 hole in my room in the bookshelf, and then there's a hole through the wall. So I was like, Mom, did you shoot did you guys shoot at each other? And she was like, oh no, I was cleaning his gun and it went off.
Yeah.
I'm like, motherfucker, you're not cleaning his gun. Like
Since when did you clean guns?
Yeah, you don't clean guns. Like you probably fucking shot at him.
Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast where relevancy is irrelevant and we don't give a shit about your feelings.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He served 8 years in the U.S. Army as a Green Beret. He was awarded a Bronze Star as well as a Purple Heart, which rest the fuck assured we will get into. He's the author of Rising Above, which I read last night and the day before. Truly inspiring book. We're going to pick it apart and dig into it. I think you guys will really enjoy it. He is the CEO of the F&G Academy, which is helping would-be's turn into has-beens as it relates to future military members. His childhood makes Jerry Springer guests look like the fucking Brady Bunch. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Sean Buck Rogers.
Thank you. Thanks, dude. That was awesome.
Well, I appreciate it. I feel like the infomercial guy, the slap chop or the ShamWow guy, when I do most of the interview introductions. But to me, that's you got to kick it off on the right note, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to take a quick second to shout out and thank our sponsor for today's podcast, Origin Labs and Jocko Fuel. Jocko Fuel is a great product. He's got a ton of products actually within the Jocko Fuel line. The guests and I enjoy them on the show. And outside, I take a lot of the supplements. I've got some of the Origin Lab jeans, boots, gis, and it's just an all-around American industry. They do a fantastic job really re-revolutionizing American industry from start to finish. It's all American made, all American sourced. Everything start to finish is made right there in-house, and they really do a phenomenal job creating the products and fulfilling the whole ball of wax. They've been a huge supporter of the Mic Drop podcast for a while now, and I really can't thank Jocko Fuel and Origin Labs enough for the job that they do for us, and so thank you to you guys. I'd like to take a second to shout out our newest sponsor, which is Project Warpath. This is a Navy SEAL-owned company that provides apparel with a pretty edgy feel, and it's a good friend of mine that runs it out of California, and just overall a great outfit. They've got a whole line of different shirts, one of which is arguably my favorite, which is Epstein Didn't Kill Himself. Wonder where that one came from. And but yeah, there's Hillary Clinton killed my friends. There's a bunch of pretty edgy and cool patriotic sayings on T-shirts with good design, good high quality, and it's one that I'm actually wearing right now. So I appreciate them sponsoring the show. Again, that's Project Warpath. You can get all their stuff online, and you know the shipping and customer service is top notch, quality product, and you're supporting a veteran-owned business. So shout out to Project Warpath. Go check their stuff out. I'd also like to say thank you to our other sponsor, Resilience Premium CBD. Resilience is excited to offer all Mic Drop listeners a 20% off discount on all products for 2 weeks from when this podcast is live using the discount code MICDROP at checkout. That's 2 words, MICDROP at checkout. I'd also like to say that Resilience is a great company that works in conjunction with Trico CBD, and all military veterans and first responders receive 35% off. Yes, that's 35% off for all military veterans and first responders, and that's through the Military and First Responders Program. You just have to sign up at resilientcbd.com/military first responders discount. In terms of about Resilience, generally speaking, it's a premium CBD that I use. Again, it works in conjunction with the Tricos brand for the everyday athlete. That's www.resilientcbd.com. And Resilience was really born with the founders who are military veterans as well, personally experienced the effects and impact that CBD had on their own mental and physical obstacles. Their focus was sharper, mental stress was calmed, fitness stamina increased, and their bodies felt less pain, inflammation after super intense workouts. A lot of times most people and people are able to either wean off entirely or significantly reduce pain management therapy. This is a shared vision among the founders that this incredible supplement had not only changed their lives, but had the power to provide unbelievable benefits to family, friends, athletes, fellow veterans, and ultimately the entire fitness community. So big shout out to Resilience for their product as well as the Trico stuff. We sure appreciate their support.
What's the best barbecue joint you've ever been to?
Oh, dude, I'm not a big barbecue guy.
Well, this interview is over then.
Yeah, so
You're in Texas, motherfucker. You got all that barbecue.
Well,
we're going to barbecue later.
Are you?
Maybe you ought to join in. You've never had a good barbecue place?
I don't think, honestly, I've probably never had like truly good barbecue. I think the closest thing I've had to good barbecue is that, was it Rudy's out in Colorado Springs? Like if you're going to the Incline, if you know that.
Yeah.
If you're going to Incline, Rudy's
I think I've been there actually. Yeah, no, you got to go to a fucking Texas barbecue joint.
Yeah, I probably haven't had good barbecue.
Yeah, that's a fucking travesty. What's your worst workout experience?
Oh shit! We were coming back from a field rotation, and I was sleeping sideways on the bus the whole way back, and then I just felt like
that's asking to get fucked with.
I know.
Yeah.
And then so we get back from the field rotation. I was like, I just want to get back in the gym. I'm gonna start getting back into CrossFit. That's a good idea. Just jump right back in.
Yeah.
So I did I was like burpee cleans. That sounds cool. I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna go do a shit ton of sets of these burpee cleans, and then as soon as I did the clean, I felt like a pop in my back, and I was like, this is it. And I was that guy in the SF gym just laying there next to the weights.
How long did that put you down for?
That one stuck with me for years.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, was it an actual, like, you pulled this or broke that? And like,
no, they couldn't figure out what it was. Like, when I would hang, these guys probably know you're like fitness guys, huh? Yeah. So
they are. So, just so you know, as we reference people, there's guests that own a CrossFit gym. You want to shout it out real quick?
So we don't own a CrossFit gym. We own an online fitness company, SumaFit.
Okay, SumaFit.
SumaFit.
We'll talk with them later, but just so that as you see us reference people off camera, that's who we're talking to. So big thumbs up.
Yeah, so it just had this like aching, like nagging pain, and then when I would hang from like just any kind of dead hang, it felt just sharp, like between a disc or something. So
and you never figured out what the fuck.
Never figured out what it was, and then typical military guy was like, "Fuck it, it's good if I can keep doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna ignore it."
Christ, we're our own worst enemy.
Yep.
Who is the person on social media that you're most ashamed that you follow?
Oh man.
Yeah, don't say me. But I wouldn't blame you if you said me.
Dude, I'm not big on social media.
All right, so name a celebrity that you're ashamed that you actually pay attention to what the fuck they do, that somebody would be surprised by.
Dude, you should ask me this before. I'd have to sit here and think about that.
I mean, that's a good sign. Like, if you started rattling off 9 names, I'd be like, dude, really?
Like obviously the funny answer would be something like the Kardashians or some shit, but I just don't.
You follow them. It's all right.
I was happy when they
see. Well, you pay attention.
No, listen, okay, so fuck it, the Kardashians, because their little commercial came back and then they were all crying and shit. They're like, it's coming to an end, and I was like, fuck yeah, dude.
Well, we'll take awesome. That. We'll take it. And as always, what is your morning routine?
Oh, that's a good one.
Like a normal morning, like not when you're traveling and shit, just you're at home doing your normal shit.
Yeah, I think
what time do you get up?
Trying to get into a book first thing in the morning helps me out a lot. So I like to read in the morning. I wake up, I go get a cup of coffee. I've had like really fucking elaborate morning routines, and I've tried it for a while and it felt great. Like, the whole cold shower, the whole nine. Like, I got that fucking expensive red light, and I was doing red light therapy in the morning. Breathing exercises, and yes, I felt great, but it was just so much, it wasn't like sustainable. Mm-hmm. And so I just fell back into what I enjoy. And so I just get a cup of coffee and read in the mornings. And
what do you typically read?
So right now I just got Jordan Peterson's new book, because I love 12 Rules.
Yeah.
and I'm a huge Jordan Peterson fan. So I am getting kind of the maps of meaning vibes from it. And I don't know if you're familiar with, he did maps of meaning, and it was like, it's too much for like a normal person. And then he went to 12 rules, and then 12 rules is like, it's like for the average Joe.
Yeah.
So it was this huge hit. But so yeah, now I'm getting into his new one, which kind of takes me back to maps of meaning. But Jordan Peterson, Napoleon Hill, Kevin Hart. I love Kevin Hart's books.
Yeah.
Even though most of those I'm just listening to him because he's got the audiobooks.
About how much time do you spend doing coffee and reading? And what time do you get up normally?
So I'll get up at like 6:30 in the morning. I'll coffee read. I just finished my master's, so usually it was coffee, homework, read, and that would take about an hour and a half. But now it's just coffee, read for like 45 minutes, and then go shower and go get a workout in, do some jiu-jitsu. And
What types of workouts? CrossFit type stuff? Or?
no, I used to be heavy into CrossFit. I like got the level 1 certification when I was training up for selection. I did the CrossFit stuff, and I still recommend it to guys because that constantly varying deal and all that. It's like I feel like it's good for special operations selections because you don't know what you're going to be doing. But I don't know. I just fell off the wagon with that stuff, and now I just like to mostly jiu-jitsu and then go and lift weights so I don't look like a skinny shit.
Yeah, no, I'm tracking. All right, so typically I go into the standard childhood, in part of the interview, which is I wouldn't say run of the mill, but it kind of is. In your case, because so much of your book details so many different experiences in your childhood that are both traumatic and impactful. We're going to spend a fair bit of time talking about that and in a little bit different manner than I typically would. Before we do that, do you guys have a lightning round or random question you want to ask him? Nothing? You got to come up with something. We're not going to keep going until you guys come up with something.
Yes, I love this. You transfer pressure away from me. This is awesome.
So we'll sit here for 3 uncomfortable fucking minutes until these guys come up with a question.
Now that you've done both CrossFit and just more like bodybuilding style lifting, which one do you prefer?
Clearly not bodybuilding.
But like strict lifts,
Yeah.
Which one do you prefer?
So somebody mentioned something. I think it was Shane on yesterday's Shane Vitko on yesterday's podcast mentioned being uncomfortable in a workout, right? And so I missed that because he was talking about how he feared his workouts. And obviously in this kind of environment with what you guys are doing, I'm sure that like fear is such an important part of your decision-making process, right? So everything you wake up and do, you should be afraid of it. Or like when we were talking about with Mike Glover, when he asked me, are you going to do a seminar or book signing? Well, the seminar scares me. So that's what we need to do. So I do miss that. And I know that's kind of a weird tangent to talk about working out, but I do miss that aspect of CrossFit because it adds that fear into something else in your life, like another aspect of your life. Because I don't fear going in and doing bench press and doing some deadlifts, and doing some curls, right? But I definitely fear doing, I even forgot the names of what's the one with the cleans and the pull-ups?
Fran?
Yeah.
Fran
scared the shit out of you.
Yeah. The first time I ever did that was, it was when I was an instructor. It was in 2005. And we had this like cool pilot course that they sent a handful of SEAL instructors up to the HQ at the time in Santa Cruz to go through their level 1 certification. Of course, we all go up there. Now, granted, this was on the tail end of me going from 205 to 140 when I got valley fever and lost 40% of my lung capacity. But so it was right after that. So I was certainly not in any kind of shape to do any of those workouts. But in any event, I went up and did it and did Fran and threw up and got the Pukey the Clown T-shirt from Greg himself, actually. But for me, that was the absolute slap in the face. Like, holy shit! Like, this is a whole different level of go fuck yourself. That was interesting. But I know what you mean. Like, because we implemented a lot of the CrossFit components of working out into some of the Bud stuff over the next subsequent few years. And there was a big element to that of almost kind of that asshole pucker factor of like getting ready to go do something that is just going to absolutely crush your fucking soul. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about fear, I relate it to a lot of like you have anxiety going into something, but then that heightens your ability to either perform or sometimes outperform.
Yeah.
And then it's like you can figure out yourself, and there's a lot of self-reflection in those workouts to identify, like, for me, for example, like identifying, okay, was I able to push this? Did I actually push it as hard as I wanted to, or was I pulling back because it was more comfortable to pull back?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think especially for kids, I mean, for all people, but being a little scared of something and then going and doing it does two things. I mean, one, it desensitizes you to that feeling in a good way, in terms of it makes it easier the next time you're a little scared of something to go do it, but it also builds your confidence to be less and less scared of things like that, which I think is probably the biggest aspect of our nation's children building that exists, is that they're so fucking protected. I mean, I make my kids uncomfortable all the fucking time, because I know it's good for them. I mean, it's measured, it's very calculated. Like, I don't throw them out into fucking traffic when they're 4 years old, but they get exposed to tough situations and essentially forced to figure it out and go through it, again, within reason. And I think far too few parents nowadays do that shit. But
well, that's something I'm having to do to myself now,
Yeah.
because my childhood, I didn't have somebody do that for me.
yeah,
So you just helping them in the future to be used to that kind of feeling.
yeah.
Because now it's like I said, every time there's something that I fear, like I have to put myself into it, because I feel like I have to catch up
Yeah.
to, you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. So speaking of childhood, from reading your book, you talk about growing up in Phelan, California. Am I pronouncing that right?
Feeling. Yeah.
If you could, and I know it's impossible to kind of synopsize it or reduce it to a couple of paragraphs, but start us out on how you grew up, the way that you like to convey it.
Yeah. So childhood for me was, I mean, it was a nightmare, man. It was horrible. It's daily overwhelming anxiety and stress and knots in your stomach and fear of what's next. And then, you just kind of get comfortable always never knowing what's coming after.
Yeah.
So, my mom had her struggle with pills after the car accident. We got into a car accident together. There's a couple I couldn't remember. I just woke up in the hospital, and then she started getting prescribed all this medication. And then at some point she started drinking with the medication, and it just became like a series of boyfriends. And then whatever that boyfriend brought, whatever baggage that boyfriend brought with him. And the desert on its own is like, it's crazy, because as I was starting to talk about it, like, people hit me up. They're like, "Hey, I'm from Phelan. Like, we went to school together, and dude, I hate this place, or I got out of it. I couldn't wait to get out of it." But the desert was like, it's a place where, meth heads go to cook meth in trailers and get away with it. Like, law enforcement is just kind of non-existent, unless you call them. You're out in the desert to do whatever you want to do. So I really grew up just, running amok and doing anything and everything I wanted to do. I had no supervision. My dad was gone when I was 1, and I just tried to stay, away from home as much as possible to try and avoid all the, stress of home.
Yeah. If you could kind of describe the living environment in terms of your grandparents and the trailers and the property, and kind of how that all is set up as a backdrop before we get into the accident and what happened after that.
Yeah, so that's kind of a crazy thing, right? Because my grandparents were super successful. They did really well. They owned a forklift company in Ontario, and they always had, they had money. They were well respected. But Ontario's, it's an hour from Phelan. And then before, when I was, who knows, maybe a baby or before I was born or whatever, they bought property in Phelan to start a ranch, because my aunt liked horses and all this stuff. So they bought that property, that 5 acres, and put a couple, I think there's 3 trailers on it, like little mobile homes, and then started building up the ranch for my aunt. So those trailers ended up getting filled with my family. And then, like, my uncle was an alcoholic and didn't work, and he lived in one. My aunt lived in the other one, and then my mom, my brother, and I lived in another one.
What was the interaction like between trailers of family? Like, did you guys spend a lot of time together, or was it kind of your own little fucking oasis?
Yeah, your own thing. My uncle and my aunt kind of spent time together because my uncle would help on the ranch. And he's such a great dude. I think he actually finally quit drinking. But that's what he would do. He would work for alcohol, and then, his payment, whatever payment, would go to drinking, and then he would just drink.
How big a piece of property was that?
I think it's like 5 acres.
Okay.
So it's not huge, but my mom obviously didn't get along with everybody else. There was always a bunch of fighting and stuff. So we stayed away. And then we were kind of isolated in like that bottom corner of the property.
And was this before she got in the car accident or after?
This was after.
Okay, so but before that, I mean, how old were you when the first accident happened that kind of changed the course of everything?
Yeah, so from what I can remember, it was like 8.
Okay.
I recall being as around 8 years old. And before that, I remember my mom being great. She worked, she was vibrant, she was, I loved her, and I remember having a good childhood.
Where did you guys live, or what was the living scenario like prior to the accident?
I think it was still trailers. I can't really remember like which house we were in before the accident. All I remember is like Christmases and going to my grandparents and, having good childhood memories. There's like a few sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
At this point, it's kind of rough because I put it in the past so much and try to pretend like it didn't exist. But, we didn't have money, but it was still good. Like we didn't need it.
At least
it was normal. Yeah.
Is there a particular reason? I mean, I know it happens fairly frequently, but from the time your dad left at 1 year old until 8 when the accident happened, and even afterwards, I noticed kind of a recurring theme of he's not even mentioned, let alone coming around at all. I mean, did he have no idea that she was in the accident, and also why was there no involvement from him whatsoever in that first 8 years? Have you talked to him, or did you ever talk to him about it?
Yeah, so we ended up connecting when I was like 14.
Yeah, which I don't get into too much of that, but just
so. And then his kind of explanation to me was just that he was seeing himself go down a path where he thought he was going to start getting physically violent with her, and then so he was like, "I need to go," and he said he just needed to separate himself from the situation and get away and start his own life, and that eventually we'd be able to make our own decision and meet up with him.
Yeah.
I remember there was like one time he sent a birthday card, and my mom pulled the check out of the happy birthday envelope, and because I was sitting in the backseat, she was sitting in the front, and she pulls the check out and it was $50, and I was like, whoa, that's $50. Like I want to get to buy something. It's gonna be awesome. I was so excited. I finally got a gift. And then she just flat out told me, like, your dad sent you $5. And I was like, I saw that,
Yeah.
So
did she take it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No joke. I don't know if you guys remember, there's like this map where you could put the quarters in it.
Yeah.
And for each state, remember that map?
Yeah.
I was so proud of that map, and I used to plug all the quarters into it. And I'd almost gotten all 50 states. And I would go through everyone's chain just trying to find the ones that I needed. And I don't know what, financial situation she got herself into, but she popped all the quarters out of there and took the money off the map. I mean, it was just,
Jesus.
It was always just take. Like everything was about her, what people owed her,
But all of this was the stark contrast in her behavior change was after she got in the accident, though, right? Like she didn't do any of that shit before.
So I don't remember. Like what I remember before was pretty positive times.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything like super negative, but yeah, from my memory, it was like a drastic change once the accident started happening.
So she gets in this accident. What do you know what happened? Because you were in the car, right? Mm-hmm. And you just woke up in the hospital one day.
Yep. So one of them, from what I was told, we were doing like 60 down a dirt road, and that's the thing about these California roads. With the washboards, you either do 2 miles an hour, or you do 100.
Yeah.
So your car's not getting rattled to shit. So I guess she was doing like 60, and somebody else was doing the same thing, and they came and T-boned us. And then that's the one I woke up in the hospital on that one.
Were you injured?
So I woke up and I had a hole in my lip right here. So I guess I hit the front windshield. I didn't have a seatbelt on. There was an imprint of my face in the front windshield. And so I woke up and was just in the hospital pulling on my lip, and I could see the hole all the way through my lip. And then that's when my Aunt Susie came in, and she was like, don't touch your face, and she's going to give you stitches and stuff.
Do you know what happened to your mom?
I don't know the injuries that she got. I think it was something back related.
Yeah.
I remember she was going to physical therapy a couple times. But then still I didn't know there was a problem until I was in a pharmacy with her, and they were like, hey, you have to leave. And she was like, I'm not leaving until you give me my pills. And so she's starting to get kicked out of doctor's offices. And the craziest thing happened while she's arguing with this doctor and like yelling at him, and the cops are on the way. He writes the script, and he was like, fine. And then gives it to her. It was but she had like multiple doctors. She would just go harass them all.
What year was this roughly?
Whew, that's a good question. This probably like early 90s. I was born in 86. I was probably like 8.
And so at that time, obviously the restrictions on doctor shopping and all that were far more lax, and so people could do that. So she just doctor shopped and went around and got prescriptions from all these different dudes. And was it all like oxy type shit or what?
I'm not sure exactly what the pills were that she was taking, but it's for back pain.
Yeah. So probably.
Yeah. And then like there was another time when she had to go get her pills, and I was like, she's like, hey, come with me. I got to go get my pills. And I was like, there's no gas in the car. And she's like, we're going. And it's to Victorville, which is like 30-minute drive. And I was like, your gas tank's like on E. We're not going to make it. She's like, we're going. We got to go. I got to get my pills. So we drive out. She gets her pills, and then we run out of gas. And now we're walking just by ourselves, hitchhiking back.
God damn.
Yeah. So
that happened. She starts to get hooked on that. What's kind of the first recollection you had of where you were really like, holy shit? Was it a situation like that, or was there kind of a pinpoint scenario that happened, whether it was with one of the revolving random dudes she had coming over, or when did it kind of really sink in that shit was different?
The French fry incident. So the
2 weeks of Orida.
So the French fry incident, we're in the ranch house, and she just comes up to me. She's like, Shawna, I got to tell you something. She's like, I don't have any money. She's like, we don't have food. So she's like, you're going to have to, I got these French fries from this lady down the street, and she was an older lady, like in her 80s or something. So I think she got a bunch of free stuff and these were like restaurant French fries, like big brown bags of French fries. And she's like, we got 3 bags of those, and that's all the food that we got. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
For like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah. So like 2 weeks until she got paid. So I just ate French fries every day. And and she was in her room. So it's not like she was taking part in this. She has her medication, and she's in bed 20 hours of the day. When friends would come over, I'd just go look, and in her bed, always just laying in her bed. And so I would be baking French fries, microwaving French fries. And that was the moment that I knew that I was like, this isn't getting better. Yeah. She's not going to bounce back from this anytime soon.
How long after that first accident was this? I mean, was it years into it?
This is probably a few years into it. Yeah.
So it'd been a few years of all the same shit, but that's when it was really like, okay, this is my life now.
Yeah. That was the moment when it was like, this is my life. There was another incident, I remember sitting in the back seat of her car, and I had my hands on the back seat, and I'm looking out the back window, and I got my knees on the seat, and my brother's in the car with me. And my recollection of the incident was, I remember getting back to the house, and my brother was cursing out my mom, and he's like yelling at her and pointing at the roof of the car, and there was like a split in the roof of the car. There's a bullet hole. And I remember there being like someone shooting at us, and then it hit the roof of the car, but I didn't know what was going on. And then I talked to my brother, and he's like, dude, there was a guy like chasing us in his car, and he's shooting out the window at our car with us in the back. He's like, the only reason you didn't get around to the chest was because it hit the emblem and deflected down into the trunk of the car. And he's like, so I'm standing there cussing mom out and yelling at mom because you almost died. She's like, she almost got you killed. And I was like, man.
Do you have any idea why the guy was chasing you and shooting at you? Or?
I can only presume that she ripped him off.
Yeah.
Or there was some kind of, I mean, yeah. So
Some sort of money dispute.
yeah.
So in reading a lot of these stories of just time after time after time of shit like that happening, I couldn't help but think, or I guess wonder, what the dynamic was between your brother and sister in terms of like you guys talking about it. I know my kids, you know, they're in their teens now, but as they were younger, like they were always, it was like a fucking Vietnam POW network. Like they're always shoveling info to each other and sneaking around and you know, and so like I wondered, you know, like was there some of that? Did you guys talk about your mom and the situation you're in? And also like, I know that school is kind of half-ass and hit or miss, but there's still school kids, and it sounds like that was a more common scenario for where you grew up. But was there not kind of a talking to other kids, to your siblings, of like, dude, what the fuck is going on? Like, how much of that took place, if any?
So we really didn't. And then especially in school is like an escape, right? So the last thing, like no joke, I never talked about any of this until I started this process. Until I started that process of that book and getting it out. I didn't tell anybody. So like in my SF buddies, not in high school, not in college, I didn't tell anybody about this stuff. The only person that I communicated this stuff to was my wife and my brother. And my brother still has like, he's working to try and get through it. And so now we communicate on just like back and forth. He's like, dude, the book helped me. And so throughout my entire life, I just put it all in the past. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want anyone to know about it. I never wanted people to think that I had an excuse. So in school became just an escape to try and pretend that I didn't have this life. So the last thing I wanted to do was tell anybody at school or have them even know what was going on. So when I went to school as a kid, I would just lie. You know, I was like, oh, yeah, everything's great. Yeah, my life is great. Or, you know, and I remember getting caught in a lie, and it was so embarrassing. These kids were all having a good time talking about a snowboarding trip. And I was like, oh, yeah, I've been to there. I go snowboarding all the time. And they just looked at me like, you poor idiot. We know. and it was embarrassing. But so that essentially, no, we didn't talk about it. My brother and I kind of bonded together to fight through it. And my sister was really, from my perspective, she was like left out of it most of the time. It seemed like, to me, it seemed like she got a kind of a pass on stuff. Yeah. You know, and it's so me and my brother and I were like the focus of the men's anger.
Yeah. You've seen the movie, I think it's called Radio Flyer. I think with Elijah Woods in it. I don't know who the other kid, but there's two boys. It's kind of a similar scenario. You'd probably maybe it'd cause flashbacks. I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't watch it. It's a really good movie though, and it has kind of a similar scenario where, you know, this dude comes home from work and uses an extension cord and beats the shit out of these kids, and he's always drunk, and his mom's a non-factor, and so they go out on these adventures, and it's a neat movie, but it reminds me, like reading and hearing, you know, you talk about it. It just, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of that. But so you bond with your brother. He's older or younger than you are?
Older by 2 years.
And so was he basically the same way at school, where he, you know, was an escape for him and lied in the same thing?
I don't know if he told lies. I don't think that he really felt the need to go down that road. I always, and that's kind of what we get into later of figuring out our escapes. My escape was to pretend, and I continued that into my adult life through actual achievements, but to me it was still pretending, like getting a master's degree, you know, doing things that I thought, running marathons, ultra marathons, things that I thought other people would think were impressive, you know. So that was my escape, and that was my way of dealing with it. I don't think that was his, but he definitely did not talk about this stuff at school. And when we were together at school, it was always, you know, me and him versus everybody else. And we spent a lot of time fighting.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that as much of an outlet as well, you think?
The fighting? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to me, we felt like we had to protect each other because we knew just how bad things were. And when we're fighting together and when we're winning fights, it was like we got to put the power back in our hands. And control our situation.
Was some of that, you think, a release too? I mean, was there an element to that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I said in the book. I was like, you know what? It just kind of came to me. I was writing. It was just broken boys want to break things.
Well, yeah, so that's funny you mentioned that. As I'm turned to page 56, I made a note about that. I want to read this paragraph real quick. Broken boys want to break things. It makes sense. If they are causing the pain, then they are not feeling the pain. Even if that relief is temporary, it's still relief, and young boys don't understand the difference between a brief moment and eternity. A brief moment of perceived power might as well be an eternity. To me, what's I think powerful about that that a lot of parents, I think, most times don't realize is that kind of forms, the personality, especially for young boys, men. Putting them in situations and them going through situations like that cause like almost a generational pattern of behavior. And a lot of times families get, I think, involved in almost like a broken record or a hamster wheel of that behavioral pattern where, a dad does that to his son does it to their son, et cetera. And it's just this revolving door of shitty behavior. But were there ever consequences from your behavior that were beyond normal shit in high school? Like, did you guys ever get dusted up with the police in terms of like it being more serious than just detention and getting in trouble at school?
Yeah, so I remember one fight. The guy, I was supposed to meet him at a party to fight him, and because for what reason I don't even remember, but I couldn't, my ride canceled, so I couldn't get to the party. So first thing someone says is, hey, I heard you wussed out on that
hey,
fight.
Pussy.
Hey, yeah, he called me a pussy and was like, hey, I heard you bitched out last night. So I ran up to the guy and I knew I was going to get my ass kicked. He was like 6'2", but I was like, I don't care. So I ran up to him and I shoved him and we started fighting, and then instantly the cops are getting called on me and I was getting arrested. And
why not go with the nut shot on a guy that much bigger than you?
I should have.
Yeah, I mean,
I've done that. But there was one time
I'm going to slap you in the nuts.
In middle school, this guy, because my brother used to have long hair, and this kid, it was a bully. He was pulling on my brother's hair, and he kept walking. He goes, "Nice hair," and he yanked on the back, and I was like, "You motherfucker!" And he was the biggest dude in our middle school, and he did it one more time, and my brother sees me and he goes, nope, 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 nope. And I was like, fuck that. And I ran up and I kicked him as hard as I could right in the nuts. And this guy, as he's like kneeling in pain and falling on the ground, he's talking about how he's going to kill me. And I just stayed there because my brother's still there. So I'm not going to leave. And then he gets jumped by this guy. So my brother's like, dude, run. And he chased me all over the place.
God damn.
I did. And then, sorry, one more. My aunt's ex-husband thought it'd be a good idea to toughen my brother up. And so he decided, because he was this MMA fighter and he was this big tough guy, he decided he was going to toughen my brother up. And my brother was probably maybe 12. Mm-hmm. And so he gets on his knees. He's like, you got to learn how to fight. And I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, they're just slapboxing, they're playing. And then all of a sudden this dude punches my brother right in the guts hard. And he's like 12. And my brother starts puking all over the place. And I was like, I knew he was messed up when he puked and then couldn't recover and then started puking again.
Yeah.
And so I ran up and did the same move on him and I booted him right in the nuts.
Is that why they call you Buck?
Yeah.
Fucking mule kick somebody in the nuts?
But you're right. I mean, that's a solid way to go about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so if you're ever trying to handle bullies, I mean, you could just boot them right in the cock and balls.
Shoot them between the eyes or kick them in the nuts. Or stab them in the liver.
Yeah.
As these situations continue to happen, I would love for you to share some of the stories, or at least one where, or I guess maybe a better way to do it would be to kind of just chronologically outline the last few years before you ultimately end up escaping. Because the couple stories about, I believe his name was John, which was the boyfriend that came in that, knocked your mom out and they were shooting at each other and your mom ran the fucking car through the front of the house, and just kind of skim over that a little bit before you get into how you got away.
Yeah. So John is what we call him in the book, but he was the worst of them.
And but I guess before you get into him, sorry to interrupt. There were several guys before then that.
Oh yeah.
All different types. Some of them, you're convinced your mom was prostituting too, or basically, or
So that's the conclusion that I kind of started to get to, that potentially he was paying for her time. I don't know if that's the case 100%, but like from my perspective, he's coming over, he locks the door, he changes out the entire door frame because they went into the room one time and I was able to get it open and they're screaming at us and they're doing it. And then so now he the next morning he comes back and rips out the whole door and changes it into like a heavy duty wooden door with even the frame of the door with a deadbolt, like a front door deadbolt on a bedroom door.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, clearly like they just want us to go away. And this happened for like months, where she wouldn't talk to him for months, and then all of a sudden he'd come over, they go on a date, and then he's giving her money. And now so I never paid any attention to it, but years later I was like, I think, from my perspective, he's probably paying for her time. But
And same with like the karate guy, right? Like you guys couldn't afford karate lessons. All of a sudden you're in karate, and then
yeah. Well, and then we look out to see, like, because my brother and I were sitting by the door, hoping that we're getting like some good feedback on our karate skills, and they're making out. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Was your mom hot or what? Like what?
I don't think so.
Well, was she a good looking woman?
In her heyday, she was a good looking woman.
Yeah. I mean, is that how a lot of this transpired? She got herself in trouble because of that, or
she never lacked attention from men. That's for sure.
yeah.
And she also picked the bottom of the barrel. You know what? When my mom was young, she was beautiful.
Yeah.
And she had a very vibrant and good personality, and she was fun. I remember before all this stuff happened, my dad left and she was all upset, and she fucking cranked up what's that female singer's name? Fuck, I never thought I'd forget. She was like super pro, like women, like empowering women.
Celine Dion.
No, she was like rock though.
Joan Jett.
No,
You don't even know who that is, do you?
no.
Of course you do. I'm the old fuck that knows who Joan Jett is. That was the first concert I ever went to.
Joan Jett.
Joan Jett and the Heartbreakers. It was at a cattle congress fair. Anyway, this isn't about me, but this is about you.
So she starts playing. Gosh damn it! I wish I knew this thing, because she still gets on the radio. This chick, and I sing with it now. But she cranks it up, and she's got the window down, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and I'm watching her, and she's cranking the music, and she's singing that she don't need a man, and she's just feeling herself.
Is it Aretha Franklin?
No.
I'm striking out here. You guys got any guesses? Nothing.
I'm gonna figure it out, dude. To this day, like, I never thought I would forget it. And then if she comes on the radio, I'm like, boom, that's it.
Dolly Parton?
Dolly Parton? Serious? That's not rock, bro.
Right. Look, I'm swinging at windmills
Fucking
here,
Zach-
all right? You're giving us nothing.
Zach, if I could look at you right now.
Zach comes in and immediately steps on his dick. I love it.
Yeah. Can I see where's your face at, Zach? You need to put a screen up so we can see you.
We need a window.
Yeah, don't come up with bullshit like that and then hide behind a wall. I'm gonna think of it though.
That's fucking great.
But she was feeling herself, and she was just singing the window, hair blowing, and she was like, I don't need no man. And I was like, I was proud of her in that moment. I was watching her just deal with my dad leaving or maybe it was a different guy, but I think it was about my dad, because we were really young at that point, and she was dealing with it in such a positive way. And so she was a very vibrant, fun person to be around.
Yeah. All right. So lots of different guys coming and going, all shitty experiences.
Yeah. So for the sequence of guys, it was kind of like that first one was, she was not, once we moved in with him, she didn't come out of her room for like months. It seemed like I thought she was dying.
Was this the one that was basically keeping her hopped up and taking her fucking...
That's the conclusion that I drew, because first of all, when I approached him, I started crying, and I was like, listen, is my mom dying? And he just looked at me so cold, and he was just like, nah, she'd be fine. And then like patted me on the back and then walked away. And then finally, when we got out of his house, she was up more. She was like, she came back too. And I was like, that motherfucker, he was the one making her like that. Because there's the only explanation that I could see is that he was keeping her drugged up, which makes sense, because if she's collecting payments from the government, was welfare or whatever, he doesn't want her to leave, and then he loses that income.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't spending any on her kids, you know, and he had two boys.
Yeah.
And we were fighting like constantly.
Yeah.
We used to beat the shit out of them.
So, all right. So that transpires. John, the kind of the varsity squad of assholes, moves in, and man, it sounds like they had some real knockdown, drag out fucking fights.
They were nuts. They were nuts, and that was where shit was just uncontrollable. It was nuts. In every day I would get off the bus because we moved into his house, so he had a newer trailer that he had built, and then we moved in with him. And then
Are there actual houses in Phelan? Or is it all fucking trailers?
somebody has them. I mean, somebody's got fucking money in Phelan, I think. You know, but in the area we were at, it's so far out in the desert. It's just like no one wants to be out there that has money, you know? So it's a lot of trailers. And you got to think all your neighbors are a bunch of shitheads. And like one of the houses on the corner where our bus stop was, they had crime tape around it for like a year after somebody went through with a fully automatic gun and just lit it up.
What's the nearest big town that most people have heard of to
Victorville.
Okay.
And Hesperia. In Victorville, it had one of the highest crime rates. And
So is that San Bernardino County?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
just a shithole.
Yeah.
No offense to everyone who's there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a native, so fuck it. You can't be mad at me.
Call it how I see it.
Yeah.
All right. So John moves in, or you guys move into John's place, and if you could tell the story about the barbecue that went fucking south. Maybe that's why you don't go to barbecue joints.
That's probably why.
That's probably it.
So the first, I'll never forget the first barbecue. They were blaring Tom Petty. See, I remember that one. Where you on that one, motherfucker?
Come on, Zach. You got the computer back there, you prick.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping he came out with.
Yeah, just Google influential feminist singer, and I'm sure she'll pop up.
Rock singer, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Have you not done that yet? I thought you were doing that, man.
Bella, I'm in here taking notes.
Listen,
He's on the ones and twos back there.
You came in and made a really good impression. I had high expectations, dude.
Well, that was your first mistake.
That was the haircut.
Yeah. So the first barbecue was like, I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. You know, family. My uncle came over. He's drinking beers. Everyone, you know, John is making food, and it smells good in the house. And I was like,
We're a family.
we're family. This is some normal life shit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're drinking beer, and then they're drinking more beer, and then they're drinking more beer, and now they're starting to argue. And then the cue was my uncle would get up and leave. He would drink his beers, and then all of a sudden the time came and it's time for him to go. And that's when I knew. I was like, fuck. Because he's a witness, right? They're going to keep their shit together while there's a witness.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he leaves, then all of a sudden the fight gets bigger and bigger, and now they're screaming more, and now all of a sudden plates are flying and tables are getting flipped. You know, one time he tried to come after me and was trying to attack me, and my brother hit him with a phone book right in his face. And then he gets up, and my brother's just like, run. And he just starts beating my brother's ass. But these barbecues would have every Sunday. They would do the same fucking thing. Like, do you not remember the last barbecue? But
We're still cleaning up.
Yeah. So I remember at the end of these barbecues, I would be sitting in my room just like crying and rocking myself to sleep, just praying that the door didn't open in my room, because I didn't want that attention to turn towards me, you know. But you're just sitting there as a kid. It's just like this ball of stress and anxiety as they're fucking murdering each other out there, and you have no choice but to sit there and deal with it. Yeah. It sucks.
And was it that night or next morning where there were bullet holes from?
So there was like multiple incidents where there were bullet holes. One of them, I came home and the fucking, there's a 22, which I knew there was a 22 rifle in the house. There's a 22 hole in my room in the bookshelf, and then there's a hole through the wall. So I was like, Mom, did you shoot did you guys shoot at each other? And she was like, oh no, I was cleaning his gun and it went off. Yeah. I'm like, motherfucker, you're not cleaning his gun. Like
when did you clean guns?
Yeah, you don't clean guns. Like you probably fucking shot at him.
Yeah.
But then after she ran the car into the house, that's when a couple days later, the next day, he was, had a shotgun and was just pumping rounds through the front door. So we come home and the whole front door looks like Swiss cheese. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? And we got into it, and he said no one's going to disrespect his house but him. But
and that was after she ran through the front door.
So I was flagging a race. So one of the things that I did to make money was I would flag dirt bike races. So I don't know if you ever heard that. So flagging a race is anytime they crash, you come out and you flag so they don't get hit. And they would pay me $20 to do that. So I was trying to, put money into a dirt bike, and so I can go ride with these kids. And so I would go flag races, and I was walking back from flagging the race, and then I look at the house and my stomach just sinks. The fucking car is up into the corner of the house, and the front bumper is showing through into the living room. And I'm like, oh my God. And it's just left there. Like it's just hanging out, sitting up into the house. So I walk in, and my mom is in the house, and I'm like, what the fuck? And she just like put a speaker in front of the house, or in front of the front bumper. Like you're not going to be able to see it.
Just throw a sheet over it.
Yeah. And so I'm like, this dude, he beats her up for nothing. Now you just ruined his house. Like the one thing he cherishes the most.
He's going to fucking kill you.
He's going to kill, either you or us all. We're fucked.
Yeah.
And so again, my anxiety just goes through the fucking roof, and she's just like, fuck it. And
is that where she was like, I guess I took the corner a little tighter?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's got a sense of humor at least.
Yeah. And it's funny because since these stories have coming out and the books is coming out and stuff, I have heard her explanation. You're a liar because it wasn't a Ford Escort.
So she's read this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she says
we'll definitely get into that.
Yeah. So it wasn't a Ford Escort. I was like, okay, well, I never said it was a Ford Escort. My bad. And she said the brakes went out or something. I was like, okay, yeah. But there were so many of those incidents. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, at one point they got into a fight. I went to go get in the back door of her Cadillac. My grandpa, mind you, my grandparents they're always in Ontario, so they know shit's off because my mom's like always blowing their phones up and harassing them, but they're not seeing, how bad it really is. We're just on our own. So, if they knew what was going on, if they lived closer, they probably would have, maybe they would have been able to do something about it. But at the same time, the cops always just brought us back.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of the questions I had written down actually was why were your grandparents, I mean, they still lived closer than a lot do. I mean, it's not like they were out of state, right?
Right.
I can only imagine, like, if I put myself in their shoes, and I've got kids that are adults now with their own kids, like I would have to believe that I would have some fucking inclination that was going on, or something wasn't right.
Yeah.
That or like, did you ever think to go to them and be like, hey, can you get us the fuck out of here? Like,
all the time. We went to, because we had family members that were willing to take us in, but every time we went there, they would bring us back. The cops would bring us back. I would go to my uncle's house, and my Uncle Rick, successful, great human being, and he would always be like, you guys are always welcome here. And then so we would go stay with him. Cops would show up, take us back. So it's not like the support wasn't there from my family, but my mom just used the police against us, so we couldn't fucking win. So I was in prison. Like every time I'd run away, I remember one time she like sat on my chest, and she put her knees, and she's a heavy woman at this time. She put her knees on my arms, pinning them to the ground, and she just sat there, and I started panicking, and I'm like hyperventilating and freaking out, and she's just like, you're gonna get the fuck over it. And I can't breathe. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. I feel like I'm gonna throw up. I'm having a straight fucking panic attack. And she's like, I'm not getting up till you get over it. And then she ends up, I like try to run. I ended up getting up. I'm running. She's like rips my shirt off, like tears my shirt as I'm trying to get out of the house. And I ran to my uncle's house. And then they're like, dude, fuck. This has got to stop. And then cops show up. Hey, you got to go back. Like, your mom has custody. You need to go back. And I was like, man, fuck you guys. Stop this shit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe so much has changed since then, Child Protective Services why, and maybe that's why it has changed. I don't know, but it just seems like
their Child Protective Services didn't do shit.
Yeah,
they were there all the time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like that's surprising, I guess. I mean, as powerful as they are for like, oh, you were smoking with your kid in the car, like they're going to a foster home. Like they're that ridiculous on so many other levels that it's hard to imagine a scenario where all of this is happening and your family can't do shit, they can't do shit. It's just, again, it's fucking.
We had Child Protective Service come from the school, call them. We had family members call them. It's funny because you knew when Child Protective Service were coming. These assholes, no, actually take offense, Child Protective Services. You guys are a bunch of dicks back then. So they would call my mom and tell her that they're coming. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what's the fucking point?
You just show up anytime and you will see how fucking bad this is.
Yeah.
But they would call my mom and be like, hey, we need to come. We got a report. We need to come meet with you at X time. So you walk in the house and all of a sudden it's clean and like it smells like food and stuff. You're like, nah, CPS is coming today.
Yeah.
And it was regular. So like clockwork. You walk in the house, it's clean and dishes are done and they're not fucking hung all over the place and there's food cooking. CPS is coming. And then she'd tell you like, listen, and this is what she would always threaten us with. So we wouldn't say anything to CPS. She's like, do you want to get your sister separated from you guys? And we're like, no. She's like, you know that if CPS ever takes you guys, you're not going together, right? So like you and Chris aren't going to be able to support each other. You're not going to go to the same place. Like you guys are going to go sent off to different places. So we were always afraid, like I don't want to get separated from my siblings, So that was the fear that she put into us. Yeah. So we're not being open to them about what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible. All right. So this continues to happen. You finally come up with a plan because you end up going and seeing your dad, right? And then that trip is transformative that way because it essentially plants the seed in your mind to say, fuck this, I'm going to move in with him. Can you walk us through how that happened?
Yeah. So I just knew that I was at that point, like I was fed up. I started to get in trouble. I almost got killed by the neighbor who was a gang member because we took his mom's car and he told us, he was like, we got pulled over by the cops and he told us, he's like, you guys are fucking lucky. And I was like, why? He's like, you stole my mom's car. He's like, I'm drunk. I got my gun in my hand and I'm driving past my mom's car with a dude in it. He's like, I was just gonna drive by and shoot you guys up. He's like, and as soon as I went to go past you and start lighting you guys up, he's like, the cop pulled you over. And I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. And so the next time my mom had threatened me, she's like, I'll call your dad. I was like, do it. I was like, anything's got to be better than this. Because I'll call your dad, our whole life was like a threat. I'll separate you guys. He's the worst. He's terrible and all that stuff. So I was like, you know what? Do it. Call him. And so she did. And he's like, I'll come out and see you guys. He's like, this is what I've been waiting for is, you guys to call me and then I could intervene and come out. So we called him. He came out to visit. And he's like, come out and see what New York is like. So I was like, done. Let's do it. So me and my brother went out. He owned a bar and, everyone was like treating him with respect. He worked for a living. And for the first time I got to see what, a normal life would be like. And I was like, I'm coming back. So we were sitting on the front porch and, having a glass of whiskey. And
that's a good dad, huh?
Yeah. He's smoking cigars and he's like, you want a cigar and whiskey? And I was like, hell yeah, I want a cigar and whiskey.
How old are you at this time?
I was like 14, 15.
Jesus fuck.
And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And so I told him, I'm coming back. And he's like, okay, that's going to be on you to figure out how to make that happen. And so, it was on me. And that was a process to get that done in a way that I wasn't just going to get taken back again for the 100th time by the cops.
I'll leave the story for the readers of the book because it's a great story and it just I think highlights and exemplifies the resilience that even kids at that age show when push comes to shove. But ultimately, so you get to the point where you move back, and then that's kind of at least from my perspective reading it seemed like it was awesome at first, but then it was like kind of the same shit just in a different way, right?
That's exactly what happened. So I went out and they're like buying me all new clothes and stuff, and like I've never went, like maybe once or twice, I shouldn't say never, but most start of the school year you're cleaning up your old shoes and trying to make them look presentable, and wearing, hand-me-down stuff. And so that's what I was used to. So I go there and they're like taking me to American Eagle and like full outfits and boots and everything. And I'm walking into school like looking like a little rich kid. And I was like, this is fantastic. And then because I looked the way I did, and now my dad owns a restaurant, this like little group of these high school kids that their parents are all business owners are like pulling me in like, hey, you're in our group. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. And at some point, I think something happened with the restaurant as far as the economy was going. So they decided they were going to move to Colorado. And they were like, hey, we're going to move to Colorado. Just to get heads up, it's going to be great. Don't stress. And I was like, at first I was like, all right, well, I guess that's cool. And then I started thinking about it for a while, and I was like, you know what? I had a really hard time like adjusting to this new school and, finally getting comfortable. So I was like, I'm not going to go. And then all hell broke loose. It was like my dad flipped into a different person and, started doing, manipulative stuff. Like he took all my clothes, and I come home one day and I have no clothes. All of it were gone. And I was like, where are my clothes? He's like, oh, I donated them. But my dad's a smart guy, right? So he knows he can't just, like, maybe law might get involved if you're donating all your kids' clothes. So I found out later that he had them all locked in the basement. We had like a crawl space and he had them all locked in there. But I was just like, fuck, dude. So I'm like going to friends and asking them to borrow clothes to go to school. So, what I presumed that he was doing was trying to make my social environment so uncomfortable that I would decide, screw it, I want to leave and go with them. So these games kept going. Then all of a sudden cops were pulling me out. And they're like, hey man, we need to talk to you. And I was like, what's up? They're like, we heard that you're hanging out with this kid and he's like a really bad influence. And we heard you running around with them getting in trouble. And I'm like, who the fuck? Okay, yep, I see what's going on here. What they didn't know was that kid, who he is was a bad kid, he, like the 2 weekends before, jumped my buddy. So I hated that kid. But anyway, so I was like, okay, that's a bunch of bullshit. So dad says, listen, the only way you could stay in New York without me pulling you is if you're gonna stay with family. And the only family we got out here is my mom, who lives 30 minutes away. So I was like, well, that's what I gotta do. That's what I gotta do. So I went and I met his mom. And I'd met her before, but I'd never like spent any time with her. And I was like, fuck it. And I introduced myself and it's like, hey, can I live with you? She was like, yeah, stay here as long as you need. And I was
This
like,
is your grandma.
This is my grandma, yeah. On my dad's side.
It's odd that you refer to her as your dad's mom. Like, did she not want to play any role once she knew that you moved there? Or?
Not really. She had a lot of her own stuff going on.
It seems crazy to me.
Yeah. So I've always just been on my own. Like I've always felt like I've been on my own. Like I love my grandparents, on my mom's side to death. They both passed now, but they couldn't be that figure that I need. They're running a business, and this grandma on my dad's side has got her own thing going on. She's got some family turmoil going on. So she was like, yeah, you can stay here, and I stayed with her until my dad was officially gone, and and then I just house hopped until I graduated high school.
And were your grades at that point? Did they suffer, or did you do all right given those circumstances? I mean, like how many different houses did you stay at?
It was probably like 3 houses before I met my buddy Billy's. Well, my buddy Billy's mom said you could stay here. She was like, because I kept getting kicked out, or they get tired of you staying there. They want you to move on. And then so Billy's mom was super cool. She was like, listen. You go to school, you can stay here. The minute you stop going to school, you can get the hell out of my house. And I was like, roger that. But for me, things changed when my dad left. I had already been through so much. So for him leaving was just like, fuck you, bye.
Yeah.
So I had a point to prove now, because I knew he was going to go to Colorado and he was going to wait for somebody in New York. It's a small town in Fredonia. He was going to wait for someone to be like, oh, Sean just got arrested, or Sean just failed out of school. So now I had a mission, and that mission was to get my grades to be better and to graduate. Because when I went to New York, they put me back a grade because I was failing out all my classes.
Yeah.
So I graduated, and then I got a Regents diploma, which I don't know. I guess you pass more tests. So not only did I get a regular diploma, they put this fucking sticker on it, and so fuck you. You know, so my thing at that was like, I will not give you the satisfaction of seeing me fail and thinking that I failed because I didn't have you. It's like, I haven't had you my whole life. I don't need you.
Yeah. Have you spoken with him much since then?
Yeah. So we actually kind of like rekindled. We didn't talk after that for like probably like 12 years. And then we rekindled a couple years ago, talked for a couple years, and then now we're back off.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
What's the reason for being back off?
So I was at his house. We're doing whiskey and cigars and talking, and my daughter's in the backyard playing, and I think she's like 6 at the time. So she's in the backyard, and he fosters dogs, but not fucking normal dogs. Like, we're talking like massive, huge, gnarly dogs. And so he doesn't know these dogs. And he has this one, and I shit you not, his head's like this big, and he's got yellow eyes, just a mean looking little thing. And I go to pet him in his cage, and he snaps at me in his cage. And they're like, oh, he just doesn't like the cage. And I was like, all right, that's strike one though. That's fucking weird. And then so my daughter's playing in the back, and the dog is just walking around the back, and he's minding his own business, so we're not paying attention to it. All of a sudden, I hear my daughter screaming, and this fucking dog is on top of her, like, you know, like he's gonna attack her. And my gut goes to my throat, and I was like, he's gonna kill my daughter. And so I jump in front of him, and I shove the dog off, and I stand waiting for him to attack me. And after that, he's like, he pours me a glass of whiskey. He's like, I was just calm down. He wasn't gonna, if he wanted to hurt her, he would have hurt her. And I was like, the fuck did you just say? I said, you're lucky I was drinking, because the only reason I didn't have my gun is because I was drinking. And if I had my gun, I would have put 5 rounds in that dog's head. And you're going to talk to me about your dog? Like, how about your granddaughter? And so that just floored me. I was like, he's sticking up for his dog over his granddaughter. And so we didn't talk for like 2 years. And then I think it was last Father's Day, I called him and I was like, hey, we need to get over this. This is stupid. Like, I understand that you know your dog better than I did, and you trusted the fact that he wasn't going to do anything. I was like, so let's just meet in the middle. And I was like, you have to understand where I'm coming from. My daughter's everything to me, and that scared the shit out of me. And I was like, as someone, and I thought maybe that he would understand this. I said, as someone who's, you know, I got PTSD, I've been in some combat, like, things that affect me, and the way this stuff affects me is close calls affect my psyche, right? So like one in combat, I almost fucking blew my leg off with a 320. And that fucked me up, because like it's the almost could have happened. It just messed with me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So I told him, I was like, and knowing that that dog could have killed my daughter at that point, that it hurts me inside. And he just said, well, you can't live in the almost. It didn't happen, so you need to get over it. And I was like, all right, dude, like, I'm not playing this game anymore. So I was like, listen, respectfully, I have no hard feelings against you. I was like, but I just think it's better if we just don't talk anymore. And, you know, I hope you have a good life and accomplish everything you want to accomplish.
And he was just like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, I said, do you have anything else you want to say to me or anything like that? And he goes, nope. I was like, all right, bye.
Dude, that's fucking mind-blowing to me, man. I mean, now granted, you know, my childhood, I don't think probably could have been much more polar opposite to yours than it was. But, like, you know, the relationship I have with my parents, they're still married. I've never heard them even raise their voice at each other, let alone fight. It was like fucking leave it to Beaver, you know? I mean, and I didn't realize at the time how, frankly, abnormal it was until, you know, later started to get into high school and going to other kids' houses and seeing the shit that went on at their house. And I was just like, holy fuck. You know, and it made me appreciate even more what my parents did and how they raised all 4 of us. But it's still, though, you know, thinking of, you know, the things that you've been through, like you have a relationship with your daughter that's healthy, strong, normal, you know.
Absolutely.
So to me, it's still, even under all of those circumstances, it's hard to imagine seeing like a grown man son of yours with a granddaughter and just being like, yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Because he seems pretty normal otherwise. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you can't run a restaurant and you know, get awards for craft beers, and, you know, and having elements of accomplishment like that without being dedicated, without having certain contributing factors, personality trait wise, that don't mesh with how he behaves with you. It's just it's
strange.
very strange fucking dynamic.
I couldn't agree more. And it's just weird. It is weird. And, you know, and he told me, I said, why you try to talk to your granddaughter? I was like, she's growing up. Like when we first reconnected, you acted like she was your world. And now it just looks fake. Like you don't care. And he's like, well, you don't let me talk to her. I was like, how do you figure that? I was like, my number hasn't changed since the last time we talked. I was like, when's the last time you called me? When's the last time you texted me and asked me about her? I was like, tell me, go ahead. Oh, I'm not playing this game. I was like, exactly. I was like, I've never once said you couldn't see her. And my phone number has never changed. Like, you're the one not making an effort. And I was like, meanwhile, my wife's mom is up our ass nonstop. Let me talk to her. She's sending her shit all the time. She's calling every 5 fucking seconds. We got to like tell her, no, you're calling too much. Like she's got homework to do, you know? Yeah. And so, you know, whatever. Yeah. Your loss.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I'm glad at least her mom's mom is that way.
To me, that was the driving point for the book. And through the visualization process of like why I wanted to write the book, it's like, even if that thing didn't sell one copy, who gives a shit? If my daughter reads that when she's older and could read the language, you know, because it's pretty foul.
Can wrap her mind around
that. She could take that baton and see it in her hand and realize, shit, Dad had to come all the way to here to get us to the point where I don't know any of the stuff that he had to deal with. Yeah. And then her mom grew up in Peru. You know, they didn't have a roof on their house. So her grandma would sweep the rainwater out of the house. You know, so it's like you get to see now how far we ran that baton as hard as we could, like as a fucking sprint for our lives to get that thing as far ahead as where we started. So just do us a favor. That's all I would ask my daughter. Just do us a favor. Run with it as far as you can. Yeah. You know, let's separate as far from this nonsense as we possibly can, because we don't need to take it to the next generation.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's a really cool way to look at it for sure. All right. So you graduate. The gal that was at your graduation and brought her family kind of on your behalf, you end up marrying her. Mm-hmm. Was that somebody you dated in high school, or was just kind of
yeah, I was in high school. She was in college.
It's like that, huh?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Rock and roll.
I felt cool. And that's kind of what led into, honestly, me and her was kind of like a lifestyle thing, because like here I am, this like poor high school kid, and I'm just like, I'm working at a tanning salon, and to reward myself, I'll go to McDonald's on like a Friday and get a cheeseburger. You know what I mean? But man, thinking back on that time, it was good because just me. I had a job and I knew how to save money, and I knew how, you know, I was frugal. But so I meet her, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, I'm in college. Oh, and by the way, I have a lot of money. And you're like, I don't care about money, but damn, it's nice to be in this nice car. And she's like, all of a sudden she's buying, every day she come home, she's got like bags of clothes, and she keeps buying me shit. And like,
do you think that you were kind of like a charity case for her?
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. Like when we talked about getting married, because we were together for like 4 years, and then she cheated on me like 6 months in. But when we talked about going on a honeymoon, I was like, dude, Mexico, that'd be amazing. Let's go sit on a beach in Mexico and drink. She's like, hell no. We're going to, Barcelona. And then we're going to stay in Barcelona. First, we're going to Paris. We're going to stay in Paris for like 4 days. And then we're going to go to Barcelona, stay there for a day. And then we're going to pick up a cruise ship and go over. I'm like, I don't even know where these fucking places are.
What did her parents do?
So her grandmother, so her grandfather had this company called Hughes Co. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. But he did medical supplies. So they were millionaires. And then, so her parents did really well. They're very frugal. I think you probably maybe 100, 200 a year. You just a normal life, right? But they were frugal, so they did good. So she didn't have to worry about money. But then her grandmother, who, God bless her, she was amazing. Her grandmother was like that old school, like, fuck everybody that I don't like, you know? She was cool. But she went to hospice, and then when she passed away, they inherited a lot of money. It was like millions.
Yeah, okay. All right, so you guys get married. It's kind of a weird dynamic from the sounds of it. But then 6 months into you being married, you walk in on her and some other dude. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
So... Looking, I was blindsided by it, but that's why they say men are always kind of blindsided, because we don't pay attention to the little details, right? But looking back on it, I see there was a lot of things that she was doing. Like all of a sudden she wouldn't have sex anymore. and which was weird. And then she just started acting different. Like, I'll never forget, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to jiu-jitsu. And she was like, okay. And that was strange because she always fought me anytime. It was like, no, don't go tonight. You spend too much time working and then going to do jiu-jitsu. Like, just do it tomorrow. So she would always fight me on it. And then this time she was like, okay. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, but fuck it. That's nice. I get to not have a fight about it. And so I didn't see the disconnect happening. And then she ended up hooking up with some dude from nursing school. She was in nursing school, and then she met some dude, and then they ended up hooking up.
Yeah. Was it something where like you weren't supposed to be there and showed up?
Yeah. So she picked a fight with me. Like that day, we started fighting about something stupid. I was like, what is happening right now? But she kept picking it and going farther and farther. I was like, this is weird. And she's like, maybe you should go stay with your brother tonight. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, if you're going to act like this, then yeah, I'll go stay with my brother. So I drove down to the desert and back to Phelan. And me and my brother just hung out, had some whiskey and chilled, and it was fun. But I go to sleep on the couch, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm sleeping on a couch. Like, I have a home, Like, so I drove back to my apartment in LA, and I unlocked the back door, and I opened the back door, and I hear her, what the hell are you doing here? And I was like, the fuck? It's my house. And she's running at me. She's jumping out of bed, running at me, trying to stop me. And then all of a sudden there's this dude cowering in the corner, like covering himself with my blankets and shit.
Like a real man.
Yeah. Yeah, he wouldn't even look at me. He just like cowered, and he's just like doing this, and he just stayed there. And I'm like, you motherfucker. And I started flipping out. I started, like, all the pictures on the wall, I just kept screaming, she's married. And I punching every picture on the wall. And then I went to the TV, and I see that the game on my PlayStation or my Xbox was not the one that I was playing. So this motherfucker's playing my Xbox.
The nerve of that guy.
Yeah. Like, listen, take the wife, but don't touch my fucking Xbox. So I started punching my TV into the wall. Yeah. And then I see he's got a glass handle of vodka on the table. And I was like, man, you keep getting worse. You cheat too. So I threw that at him. And I thought about taking it to the next level. And because I knew he was just sitting in the corner. I was like, I'd do whatever I want to this guy. He's just going to let me act out my anger. And I looked at some knives, on the butcher block, and I was like, I could take this to that level. And she started calling the cops, and I was like, let's just get out of here.
And so that was a big turning point, life decision wise. One thing that I was curious about in reading, so after you graduated, you moved back to California, and you're going through firefighter and EMS and all this other stuff. Why did you move back to California after you graduated, given how shitty of a place it was for you as a child?
So when I met her, it's kind of a weird thing that this is probably also why we fed into this relationship. When I met her with all this money, I didn't have to work anymore. She was paying for everything. We had the nicest apartment. I lost the concept of what things cost. Like, that's how much money we were spending. And her dad would just be like, hey, you spent $5,000 on random things this month. And she'd be like, haha, I'm so sorry. And then he just let her do it again. So we were blowing money like it's going out of style. And then so all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, I could do things. I don't have to work. Like, I don't have any bills. I don't have to pay anything. She pays for everything. And I was like, what can I do that's just fun? So I actually got into acting. And so I was like, this is fun. This is really cool. Like, this is enjoyable. And I started going to seminars and, doing that kind of thing. So that was where the decision came. I was like, well, let's move to LA. I was like, I'll try the acting thing. And it's so crazy because looking back on it, like, acting is such a hard career because people have to supplement their income while trying to do auditions when they're like, hey, come in at 10 o'clock in the morning on Monday, But for me, I was like, I don't have anything to do. So that was how we ended up going back to California.
Okay. And was it, or it seems like, I guess, that once you have that happen and it kind of derails everything that you have going on, at that point, then that's where there was a paradigm shift in your mentality kind of across the board. And you talk about backward planning, which I want to read a quote, and then you can get into that. This type of backward planning stuck with me forever. This goal first, plan second way of thinking aided all my future success. Until recently, I had never known
where that way of thinking had come from. But as I dive deeper into my past, I know my childhood and the struggles I faced gave me those powerful tools. From the day I decided to leave California, I never thought about how hard things were, and I never allowed myself to be overcome by the challenges of my goals. I simply ignored them. And so using that train of thought, then you decided to join the military, essentially, right? I mean, was there a driving force post 9/11 aspect that made you want to do that, or was it just the challenge?
None of that. I actually didn't want to join the military. So once she left and we split, because I was obsessed. Like I went after this acting thing like it was a straight up obsession. I got signed. I got my, I was doing things really hard, getting your Screen Actors Guild and all this stuff, and for all intents and purposes, working out. But I was.
Were you in anything that we would know of?
No, it was just like
like a Calgon commercial or anything.
Yeah, there's a herpes one.
Is that right?
No, I wish there was. That would have been hilarious. Like there was like music videos that I did with, it was like Puddle of Mud video, and
you were the hype man in the back, weren't you?
I was a fluffer. And then I did this like kids movie, like Mostly Ghostly, and it was just a glorified extra spot, but it got me the Screen Actors Guild stuff, and so it seemed to be working. But the minute she left me, I was like, it gave me a second to think about it. It like broke me away from my obsession. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to succeed at this to prove something. Like if I want, I could just go do something else. And then all of a sudden, like acting wasn't this like monumental peak that I needed to anymore. So I was like, I'm gonna go try something else. What would be something that I truly want to accomplish right now? And that was like, well, firefighter would be cool. So I figured out how to, I had to take all these classes to be a firefighter. So I started knocking that shit out. And then in EMT school, I got in a fight and then headbutted this dude and got kicked out. And then the next day I was like, that's when I joined the military. I was like, I got to do something with my life. I keep fucking it up.
Yeah. And so you check out the Air Force, they tell you to fuck off. The Marines, you got too many tattoos, and which is hilarious to me. But
yeah, because I had one behind my neck, like on my neck.
Yeah.
And in the Army, I ended up getting it cut off. They were like, because I became a sergeant major driver in his PSD, I was like around these fucking colonels all the time and full birds and generals and all his people. And I was like, it kind of became embarrassing to have this like neck tattoo. So they let me cut it off.
Like laser it or?
No, they actually cut the skin like a cat's eye.
Jesus.
And then sewed it back together, and they had to do it twice to get the full tattoo off. But he showed me in a jar. He's like, "You want it?" And I was like, "Fuck no, I don't want it."
Laser the fucking thing off.
Yeah. So he just cut it off. He's like, if we laser it, he's like, it's always gonna have some remnants of ink in there, and it's gonna look like you just had it lasered off because it was black.
Yeah. All right. So you end up joining the Army. You want to go to Ranger School. Walk us through that career path.
Yeah, so for some reason, I just knew Rangers were high speed. So I was like, fuck it, I want to be a Ranger. So I walked into the recruiter's office. He must have saw me coming, man, because all I said was, hey, how you doing? My name's Sean. I want to be a Ranger. Air Force kicked me out. Marines kicked me out. I got a tattoo on my neck. Can I be a Ranger? And he's like, oh, yeah, dude.
Yeah, I need my quota filled this month. Sit the fuck down.
Yeah, so, I didn't know that there was like different types of Rangers. I thought a Ranger is a Ranger. So he was like, all right, come back tomorrow and I'll run some shit and we'll see if we can get it. And the whole night I was just so nervous that I wasn't going to get Rangers. Like I became hyper focused on the Ranger part. And I think it was a way that I was like, that is going to be my way of proving that I'm like something that, to myself and to other people, because I always had something to prove. So I needed the Ranger part. I needed a title, right? I didn't put 1 second of thought into anything but that title. So I went in the next morning, I'm like, I'm nervous. I'm nervous that he's going to tell me no. And he goes, I got you, Ranger. And I was like, fuck yes. I don't care about anything else. And he goes, I got some bad news. He goes, they didn't have any infantry spots available, but they have one for a 92 Golf. And I was like, I don't even care. But I was like, but what is that? He's like, a cook. I was like, you guys that doesn't even make sense to me.
Old Chef Buck.
And then there was a Ranger in the back corner, is a scrolled tabbed Ranger, and he goes, "You're gonna be a cow killer," and I was like, "Who the fuck is that guy?" He's got his arm says Ranger. Like, why the fuck am I not talking to him? Why am I talking to you? Because this guy was an '88 Mike. He was a truck driver. I'm like, you got a Ranger over there? Like, send me that fucking guy. He's like, you're gonna be a cow killer. I was like, that doesn't sound cool at all. But I was like, fuck it. You know what? I was like, if I got to do that to get the title and to prove myself and to get into something difficult, I was like, if you want to change your mind, you just change your mind, right? Like that's how life works. I don't want to do it, so I'll do something else. And I didn't know that the military is like, hell no, you don't just change your mind whenever the fuck you feel like it.
No, this is what you picked.
Yeah.
So come back in 20 years if you don't like it.
Yeah, and that's why I tell guys now, they're like, my recruiter says I should do this to get to my goal of this. I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah.
You sign up for exactly what the fuck you want.
Yeah. All right. So once you get that hashed out, I mean, you still came in under that same guise, right? Of you technically have Ranger lined up, but you're a cook, which means you really don't.
Right.
Right. So
which is what my drill sergeant told me. He's like, he was an infantry guy, and at one point he's like, you're not a fucking Ranger. And I started to get scared. I was like, is it not in my contract? Did I fuck it up? I thought I had Ranger in my contract. And I'm like going to people like, did the contracts change like when we get here or something? But that's what he was saying. He's like, he ain't a fucking Ranger, bro.
Yeah. All right. So you go through boot camp and then you end up going to Ranger or to RIP, right? To
RASP.
RASP.
So they had just switched it to RASP when I was going through.
So it's Ranger Indoctrination Program was RIP. Then
This is a Ranger Assessment Selection Program. So it went from the 3-week smoke session to now it's a 2-month. And then the first month is the smoke session, like RIP. And then the second month is like teaching, charges and shooting tactics and stuff like that.
Okay. So you went through that, but you failed out of it?
Yeah. So I was on a ruck run and fucking Dick Couch shows up to do a book on the class. Yeah. And which was a nightmare, right? Because like we know what's going to happen when Dick Couch comes in. Like everyone knows that fucking he's the guy for writing these military books and they're going to amp the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And Rangers, it's already tough, but I don't care who you are. If you come do one on SFAS, you think we're going to do the same shit when an author's there? No, we're going to ramp it up a little bit. We're going to throw a little spice on it.
It's like when the Admiral's coming.
Yeah. You're going to throw
Everything changes.
Yeah, you're going to throw a little extra on it. So I'm doing the ruck run, and I'm staying arm's length the guy in front of me. The cadres yells at me to close the gap. And I take off running, and I eat shit. Like my ankle rolls, I slide in, and then I'm just fucking in pain on the ground, like moaning and groaning. But the last thing I wanted, like this was my chance, the whole reason I was in the military was so a Ranger, would look at me and say that I was good enough. Cause I felt like I needed that in my life. I needed that validation. So that Ranger told me to shut the fuck up. So I bit my tongue cause pain moans were just coming out. And he said, get up. So I got up. As soon as I got up, my fucking ankle was on fire. And he said, move. So I moved. And I was like, this hurts like unholy hell. I was like, but I'm going to make it. And I was like, if I can get through this, that's what I kept telling myself. Every time my right foot would hit the ground, I was like, if I could get through this ruck, it's good enough to get through RASP and I don't have to drop. And then I'll never forget the truck pulling past me. It was slowly pulling past me with all the quitters in it. And they were all sitting in the back looking all fucking poo-poo faced. And they were looking at people, though. They were looking them in the eyes. I could see them when they were coming up. And then they looked at me, and I had the blood coming down my knees, and because we're in PT shorts and my elbows, and I'm limping, but I'm fucking moving out. And they looked at me, and then they just down. Heads went down, and I was like, I'm not getting in that fucking truck. And that became my, Dick tried to talk to me, but I was in too much pain to respond. He's like, you took a nasty spill. I was like,
So you finished that?
Yeah, so I finished the ruck. I went upstairs and I tried to get my boot off. It wouldn't come off. I had to take my laces all the way out. As soon as I took my boot off, it was like my ankle was like that fucking round and all the way swollen down to my toes, and it was starting to turn black already. So I was like, this is bad. Like it's way worse than I thought. So I went downstairs and the cadre saw my foot and he was like, yeah, you're done, dude. And I was like, I just started to cry and I started punching the fucking lockers in front of him. And he was cool. He just kind of let me have my moment of, taking it in.
So what happened after that?
So after that, the E8 pulled me in, was like, hey man, do you want to stick around and heal up, or do you want to come back once you're healed up? And I was like, dude, the last thing I want to do is stay here and not have a life for potentially 3 to 6 months before this thing heals. I was like, so let me go to a unit, and as soon as I'm healed up, I'll come back. he's like, all right, man. He's like, you're the type of guy we're looking for. So as soon as you get healed up, just come back. And from then, cadre were cool as fuck with me. Like I don't know if it was because I finished that ruck.
Yeah, for sure.
On that, but it meant the world to me the way they treated me. They were like, if you didn't want to come out to formation, they was like, fuck it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember, I spent a little over 3 years as a SEAL instructor, and for sure that if I had to pinpoint one thing that drove how we interacted with and treated students was, their put out factor, and if guys, especially in the face of adversity, did shit like that, like it's like, yeah, that's the instructor cadre are the gatekeepers of those communities, and are solely charged with ensuring that the people that make it through those gates are guys that they would want to go to war with. And to me, like, that's something that you can't even set up a scenario like that to see if a guy has what it takes, So when those opportunities would present themselves, rest assured we would take heed of them and kind of act towards that prospective student appropriately that way. But
which means a lot to the students.
Fuck yeah, it does.
I mean that meant a fucking world to me.
Yeah, and you can tell, it's because you fuck with everybody, but then when a little bit of that gets pared back because it's necessary. Yeah, I remember seeing it because there were guys that I kind of pinpointed that I saw doing shit like that, it would change the way I would interact with them a little bit. I'd still fuck with them. In fact, I'd probably fuck with them even worse, but more in a joking manner. And yeah, it was neat to see the how it kind of transpires mentally for them when they recognize that. But that's cool. All right, so you go to a regular unit, and then from there, how did you end up spending 3 to 6 months, or was it longer?
So it was about 3 months, but it had nothing to do with being able to switch. At that point, I had known, I felt like when I got to Germany as a cook, that I was back in the desert as far as I have to get out of this. I have to fix this.
So that same mentality.
Same mentality. I was like, whatever has to happen, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm not doing this. So I started pestering the fucking Sergeant Major because I knew his PTSD and was PCSing. So he's going to a different base, and I was like, this is my chance. And so I told him, I met him in the field. I saw him in the field. I was like, hey, Sergeant Major, I heard you look for a driver, and PSD for that deployment's coming up. I was like, I'll do it. And he just laughed at me. He's like, who is this kid? He's like a private, and he's coming up to the Sergeant Major and talking to him but I could tell that he, I was going to base my decision off how he reacted to that. And I could tell that he kind of, I feel like he kind of respected the balls, to do that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep going. Fuck it. It's got to be Hail Mary pass. I cannot deploy as a cook and be cooking. I was like, that's not what I want to do. I was like, I need to get out of the wire somehow.
Did you learn how to make anything worth a fuck?
No. No.
Learn how to open cans and heat shit up.
Yeah. People ask me, like, fucking Andy asked me all the time. He's like, what do you know how to do, dude? And he kept calling me a fucking chef. And I was like, I'm not a chef, bro. It's a cook. And I was like, and I don't remember. He's like, well, how long was AIT? And I was like, I don't know, like 3 months. He goes, you spent 3 months? You don't know what the fuck you learned? I was like, dude, flipping eggs. I don't fucking know. Like putting water in the powder and shit, shaking it up and pouring it on a flat skillet. Like that's what you learn how to do.
It's more logistics and following directions than it is making shit.
Yeah, exactly. You're just sticking with their fucking plan. But so yeah, I kept pestering them, and it got me fucking digging foxholes in the woods as punishment for my first sergeant, because I kept fucking hounding the Sergeant Major until he gave me that spot.
So you go back and kicked it in the ass
for selection.
Yeah.
So I went to deployment, and then I was gonna go back Ranger. That was still the plan. But then on deployment, I saw some Green Berets like fucking getting it. Like so, the Sergeant Major switched out, but this Sergeant Major was cool. Sergeant Major Franco, he used to let me take his car, and because he had his own car. Him and the commander had their own car when he had appointments. So anytime the bird was going to come in for a medevac, they'd come into Shank, and because we had that forward surgical team, and he was like, "Fuck it, if something's coming in, take my car." He's like, "Hey, stay the fuck out of the way." I understand you want to get into it and get it fine to see something. But just be respectful to, stay out of the way, because people didn't really tell me what to do because they knew me and Sergeant Major were cool. And that, I worked with him hand in hand. But So every time the bird would come in, I would go and I would just watch them work on people. I'd watch, people come in that were killed, and I would just try to take it in because I wanted to experience war to see what's going to happen. And then I saw these fucking Green Berets come in, and he's carrying his dead buddy, and he's carrying another dude that's all hyped up on, probably morphine, and he's got a through and through the back of both his legs. And then as he's carrying them, we have our memorial bracelets. Dude, he's got like fucking 4 of these things on already, and he's carrying his dead friend. And I was like, these motherfuckers are real. And he's dirty. And guess what? As soon as he drops them off, he's getting on that bird to go back to whatever the fuck just did this to them.
Yeah.
I was like, that's where you prove yourself. I was like, those guys, they're different. Their fucking eyes are glazed over different. They're different. Like whatever they had gone through, I don't know if it was training or war or what, but I wanted to see if I could get that glazed look in my eye, and kind of even partially live up to what I saw that day. So from there, I told the Sergeant Major, I was like, Special Forces, that's what it is. And he was like, okay. And then the surgeons didn't want to do my packet. They're like, fuck you, dude. We're not doing a SFAS packet in the middle of fucking combat. Like we're working. And the medics didn't want to do my paperwork, but Sergeant Major hooked it up. He was like, hey, take care of them. And so from there, I left early on deployment, 3 weeks early, and then went to selection right away.
How was that experience for you? I mean, I've had other guys on here. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but what was the kind of the overall gist of your experience in selection? I
was back.
Yeah.
I was back, and I was not going to get hurt again. And that's one thing that Ranger, like, I call it a failure because to me it was a failure. I got injured, right? But I failed to tie my boots right. I failed to put my ruck on appropriately. I failed to mitigate the risk in order to not get injured. So I see that as a failure. And I learned a ton from that. So when I went to SFAS, I was like, I am not, dude, I was watching when it was like sandy runs, I'm watching where each foot is going to make sure I'm on a good platform so I don't roll my ankle. Like I was so injury conscious and aware because to me, I was like, I'm finally back into the moment where I could prove if I could make it, and if I had what it took. So to me, I was scared shitless every day, but I was also on a high.
Yeah.
And then every day I passed or when cadre would be cool to me, for me, it was so much more than it was for the people around me, I thought, because they're wanting to see if they could be Special Forces. I was wanting a hard dude to look at me and say I was good enough.
Yeah.
So this was my entire life, like wrapped up into these guys, these men that I looked up to.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to see the unquestionable correlation between no father growing up and constantly feeling not good enough. Like that had to have been a huge component to this being such a hard driving force in your life. Is that something that you thought about during that process? Like showing your mom, showing your dad where you came from, like were those things that you thought about?
Not so much showing them. To me, it was for me because I felt like, and I still feel like this because I got a long way to go. But I didn't like what I was dealt.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted was an excuse. And the last thing I wanted was to be what everyone thought I was going to be. So yes, there's part of it is proving them wrong, but mostly it was I needed to prove to me that I had something worth, because I had to get rid of this feeling of doubt and insecurity and not feeling good enough all the time. I knew I wasn't going to go very far constantly carrying that weight around.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a big driving force, is like anything I could do to prove to myself that I could accept myself as a human being and that I'm good enough. That's what I need to do.
And you made it straight through in that one, right?
I did.
Okay. When you finished that, what was your specialty after?
I was a 18 Bravo, the weapons sergeant.
And so you jump right into what base were you stationed at, or what group were you with?
So I was at 10th group, but so I went back to Germany, picked up my family, and then we went to Bragg and then started the Q course. And then graduated from there, I went to 10th group in Colorado.
Okay, so back to Colorado, like you were originally going to go to, right?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like it all circled back.
Yeah, full circle.
if you could kind of walk us through the timeline year-wise of once you became, or once you joined up with 10th Group and ended up deploying with them, what was that deployment like?
So that deployment was the best and worst experience of my military career. I got to group, the guys were in Africa, and I was on the B team, which fucking sucked. So instead of going to the ODA and getting to find out what ODA, the guys still had like 3 months left out in Africa. So they're like, well, you're going to be on the B team until they get back, like, because all the teams are gone. I was like, fuck. So I'm playing new guy on the B team, you know, sweeping floors, buying guys lunch, buying beer, trying to, you know, mouth shut, cleaning toilets, doing all the new guy stuff for months. And then, you know, finally the teams come back, and then I have to start all over again.
Yeah.
Because then I get on ODA and they're like, what's up, new guy? I'm like, fuck, dude, I've been doing that shit for months over there. Like, you know how many fucking.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
Did they haze you when you first joined up with them?
The SF?
The ODA guys?
Nah.
They didn't haze you?
No. I mean, well, they did stupid shit that they were smart about it because they did stuff that they knew pissed me off more. Like, if they were to smoke me, cool. I'd be like, I don't give a fuck. If they want clean shitters, I don't care. But they made me wear this fucking hat, and that pissed me off because that
was a vagina hat. What was it?
It was a neon yellow fucking hat. Is the ugliest hat I've ever seen in my life, and not even like fitted. It's like this trucker, those big ass ones that are like this tall off your forehead, and it said fucking new guy 0226 fucking new guy on it. And they were like, you're gonna wear that hat all the time, and I was like, fuck you, fuck this hat, I hate this. And so I did everything I could to like hide it, to get rid of it. And every time they saw me, they'd call me, put your hat on. Like, damn it. And then they say, put your hat on and go get us something from the B team. That's the worst, right? Because the teams are, the way the buildings was set up was, you know, each team room is in a row, and then on the other side of the hall is the B team. Yeah. Well, every person goes in from all the teams goes into the B team room. It's like the center hub where you got to go, you know, coordinate shit and talk to the B team sergeant, whatever for ranges, whatever you got to do. So that's where everyone's at. You know, at least if I stay in my team room, no, I don't get embarrassed throughout the whole company. Yeah. That's fucking. So they would tell me put it on and then go get something from the B team. Like, fuck.
It reminds me of so when I was in Buds, we were out at San Clemente Island, and you know, it's a 26-mile long by 4-mile wide island that's about 90 miles off the coast of San Diego and LA, kind of like halfway in between the two. But it was during an El Nino winter. This is February, so the water's cold, the surf's huge. And one of the students that was in my boat crew, part of his last name has the word burger in it. Mm. And no shit, like as we're getting our ass handed to us halfway in and out of the water, getting surf tortured and whatever, there was some like ocean trash that washed up on the beach, and one of them, if you can fucking believe it, was a rubber squeaky fucking cheeseburger dog toy that washes up on the beach right by this motherfucker, no less.
Perfect.
Right? And so, of course, the instructors grabbed this thing, strap it to his fucking hat, and he had to wear this fucking cheeseburger, plastic or rubber cheeseburger dog toy on top of his head for the whole rest of the time we were there. But the shit that the military does to each other like that's fucking great.
Yeah. Well, and then people don't realize, like, when all through these selection processes, you know, you're trying to blend the fuck in.
Yeah.
You know,
like, it's like the anti-gray man thing when they do that shit on purpose. But yeah, it's fucking great.
And so they pull you out, like they say in SEER school, you know, special people get special treatment.
Yeah.
So you don't want to stand out in that way.
Don't be special, Chuck. Yeah. So you make it through there. You ultimately, I'm assuming, end up with an ODA unit and get ready to fucking kick some doors in. Talk about that if you would. Yeah.
So our ODA was young. So when they got back from Africa, there was a lot of senior guys on the team. We had this dude, Reggie, and he was the fucking man. He was a chief warrant officer. He was the man, and everybody just admired him and looked up to him. He's the dude, right? But he's cool to everybody. All the experience, all the attitude, just the right guy, you know. And then he gets promoted. It's like, it's a downside to group is that they take the good ones and they just send them up, you know, too soon. But so we lose Reggie, and then now all of a sudden our team is real young, like, because a lot of the senior guys left, and then all those new guys, you know, are coming in. We don't have any SF combat experience. So the team sergeant, he was like, well, we'll get over that through some hard training. And we trained hard. Like, we were always the first team out, last ones to come back. You know, we would do shoot houses, 24 hours straight shoot houses. And to the point, and, you know, live, so to the point where it's like your shot group's getting a little too wide, it's getting dangerous. You guys are too tired.
Did you guys do all of your pre-deployment training in Colorado, or do you guys travel kind of the way we do and go to shoot schools and all that kind of shit all over the country?
Yeah, so we do that. So as far as the schools go, it's kind of like up to it's how many slots are available, and you try to get guys on the team, as many guys you can in schools. So a lot of pre-training, you'll be missing almost half your team sometimes.
Yeah.
So guys at different schools around the country, and then we have to do the pre-mission training in Texas, and that's where the whole command comes, and they evaluate your team.
Is that at Hood?
Yeah. And that's like that one's the big one, right? Because that one's your chance to prove to the command that you deserve one of the better missions. Because hey, there's missions all the way from you're going with the best of the best to get fucking bad guys down to you're gonna make sure this fob doesn't get overran. Mm-hmm. You know, so the last thing you want is to be that team. So it's constantly a competition with each other to, you know, be the best performing team so we can get those good missions.
Yeah.
So that was our goal, was to just bust our asses and overcome our newness with just hard ass training.
Yeah. How long is that process of the pre-deployment workup?
It was like, I think it's typically like 4 or 5 months.
Okay. And then you deployed after that?
Mm-hmm.
Straight to Afghanistan?
Yep.
What year was that?
Where was that? 2015 is when I graduated. So that should have been like 2016.
And so when you went over there, was there a perception on your guys' part in terms of the operational tempo of how it was going to be? The guys you're turning over, was it active, hot?
So 100%, we were going over there thinking we were going to play Xbox the whole time and work out.
The game you wanted, not the
Jody's
game.
Yeah, like obviously it's going to be a shooter game, whatever bullshit he was playing. So we thought we were going to go over there and, you know, not be getting into much. So, I mean, they got into a couple ticks, but even the one that they were showing us, it was like from pretty far away. You know,
that's a slang for firefight, troops in contact. But a lot of people
don't know that.
They give me shit about the lack of acronym explanation. But go ahead.
Yeah, so they showed us some videos of them getting in a gunfight, and we're like, okay, that'd be fun. I'm down. Let's do any kind of gunfight. But they didn't have a ton. They weren't getting a ton of missions and a ton of operation time.
Can you say what area you were in?
So we were located near JBAD, and I always get this mixed up because I didn't pay attention to where we were going, and I really didn't. Like
a true Green Beret.
Yeah.
I don't know where the fuck we're at.
I don't know where we're going. Just tell me which valley. And most of the guys aren't like that. Most of the guys pay attention. And my Fox, after people started asking me, he texts me every time. He goes, dude, it's this valley and this valley. And I'm like, I'm not going to remember that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But so, yeah, where were we at?
Just the area that you were in.
Oh.
And then how hot it was or not.
Yeah, so
operationally.
Yeah, we really didn't plan on doing much. And I was like, well, whatever, I'll work out and play video games, and hopefully we'll get into a gunfight. Because, you know, that's what we all wanted as being, you know, green SF guys, is I want to pull this damn trigger.
Yeah.
My first deployment, all we did was get shot at, and I never got to shoot back. And then we got there, and dude, Obama said, send it, which just blew all our minds. And then before you know it, we were getting in, you know, one mission is like gunfights all day long. And then we'd be in that valley for like 3 days. And it's just like, you fight from the, you know, it was nuts. Like, people may not realize it, but, you know, they don't have nods and stuff. So you're sleeping at night. And we're not getting like 8 hours of sleep. We're probably like racking out for an hour and a half and taking turns and stuff. But we got air coverage watching our six, and the fighting stops at night. And then first thing in the morning, we ramp it back up. We get out there and we start pushing again. And then we're trying to get to the end of these valleys to clear ISIS out and push them back into Pakistan or whatever. So you're just getting in ticks throughout the whole process. And
were most of the operations that you went on where it was kind of going out looking for trouble, almost, you know, recon by fire, but just going and looking for shit, clearing areas, or were there specific
high value target missions that you went on? Were there any of those bomb makers or anything like that?
So not particular people. We kind of like try to go towards weapon caches, caches. Well, I don't know. But we were trying to find weapons. So the purpose for that was the base that we were connected to was getting annihilated by IDF. So a big thing for us was like, okay, let's go to these valleys and find their that's indirect fire, sorry. And let's go find their weapons caches and take them from them. So, and then between valley clearance operations to just push the enemy out to try and get ANA, the Afghan National Army, to try and replace the enemy fighters with them in the outposts. That was one major mission. And the other one was like, trying to find weapons and, take their supplies.
Yeah. Okay. Of the entire time that you were there, were there a few or one operation that stands out as being like the most hairy, as far as like getting pinned down or having to call in air support, or I'd love to hear kind of what some of the hairier goes you had.
Yeah, so there was one, and it was a closer valley, so we were pretty comfortable.
Was this the one where you got injured, the Purple Heart wise?
No.
Okay.
So that was my first deployment.
Oh, okay.
So that one was, we took a recoilless rifle round, and then it just knocked me on my ass, and then ended up the mortuary affairs guy's building got hit, and then we tried to go in there and get him out, and then by the end of the night we're throwing up and all this shit, and they said my fucking bell got rocked and from the recoilless round. So they gave me Purple Heart for that. And then the second deployment, I almost got shot multiple times. One of them, we were going into this valley, and this is kind of what they were doing, is they were letting us come in, and it would be so quiet. And once we get in, they just hit you with everything they got on the way out. So we go in, and as we get to the end of this valley, it's like it's like a giant cul-de-sac and just surrounded by mountains. And I was looking at it, and it's all mountains around us besides like the way we drove in. And then there's like nobody around. Everyone we see walk around is like military age males. And I was like, this is ambush. This is an ambush spot for sure. And there was some, all the houses, like at the end of the valley, there was a bunch of huts and stuff. And sure enough, out of nowhere, we just start getting lit up, and we're stuck like in this perfect ambush spot, and they're hitting us from 360. So that was the one where the Terp, we moved the vehicles in to try and block us in. I requested to pull out of, AK-47 range so we could just use the 50 cals. That got denied. I think the idea was that if they're hitting us this hard, that there must be something good in those houses, that they were protecting that.
Yeah.
My thought was more that we were just in a good ambush spot, and they were going to try to take as much casualties as they could. So we stayed in what I think is a shitty spot. And then I look over to Travis, the EOD guy, he's shooting. We're trying to find him. And we ended up finding one of their cell phones later on. We saw some footage of them shooting at us, and they had these amazing positions. It was like a rock, an opening, and it was covered with a rock because that bird was flying around trying to find him, and they couldn't find him. And he would step out with his PKM. I'm pretty sure his PKM's the 7.62. Yeah. It's been a minute. So he steps out with his PKM and just starts lighting us up, and then he steps back in, and he's completely covered by rocks. Wow. So we're doing that, and then I look at my Terp, and he's like pretending to shoot his AK, and I'm looking, and there's nothing coming out. Like there's no ejections around. So I was like, "What are you doing, dude?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know." And so I move him over, and as soon as I move him over, I see rounds snap in the ground, and I was like, "Oh shit, here they come!" So I just start trying to shoot as many back as I could, and then as the round got closer, I'm kind of waiting for one to hit me because it seemed like it took forever, but it was really fast because it was like. And then I just hear, Buck, they shot me.
That was the Terp?
And it was the Terp right next to me. So I actually moved him.
Did he have that good English?
Oh, yeah, he was really good.
Because he sounded like out of a Western movie or some shit.
Yeah, well, and then when he got hit, he like squealed like a little girl. He was like, Buck, they shot me. And I looked at his leg, and I was like, where did they shoot you at? And he goes, right here, man. And he's got a hole through the top of his thigh. And it was a through and through. I couldn't see the exit at the time, but I was like, yeah, they sure did get you. And then he's just looking at me like waiting for me to fix it. And I was like, well, I can't do anything right now. Like,
Yeah. I'm not a medic.
yeah, like
Shove a sock in it. Fuck off.
yeah, put your fucking thumb in there or something. That's what they do in the movies. So that's when I stepped out, you know, returned fire, had him get in the vehicle, and then just wrapped it up for him. And he ended up, it was like the best way you could take it around. Like he had
Didn't hit bone?
no
Because
bone.
goddamn, that 7.62 by 54 round would shatter your femur. I mean, it'd fucking kill you if it hit your femur. It'd most likely get your artery there. But
Yeah, it didn't hit any. He wasn't like bleeding heavily. It was just a perfect little hole right through the top, and then it came out a little higher in the back of his thigh.
yeah, wow. So how long did that whole gunfight go down for?
It was probably like 30, 45 minutes of just taking it and trying to give it back, and you know, not till we saw that video, but that we realized that we probably weren't doing much damage to them. But then when we went to exfil, because finally they were like, all right, fuck it. Team sergeants like, clear those fucking things, clear the huts. And I was like, okay. So he's like, take the commandos and clear them. So me and my buddy, one of my teammates were like, all right. So we go to jump back out to find the commandos. This is after the Terp got hit, and they're all gone. So we see one sitting over in one hut smoking a cigarette, leaned back up against the wall smoking a cigarette. And then we see another one like bullshitting with his buddy, just talking and sitting down and relaxing. And I was like, what is happening? And I'm like, guys, let's go. We got to clear it. Let's go. And they're like, wait till I'm done with my cigarette.
How many of you Green Berets were there in relation to how many Afghani commandos?
It was like, they brought like a company, and it was probably like 10 Green Berets.
Wow.
And so, but once we were in that, like once we'd been in the gunfight, the company bounced. They were gone. They left immediately. So in that valley, like while we were doing that, it was only Green Berets in there, and like maybe like 5 or 6 commandos that were too far from the rest of their element to leave with them, so they stayed with us.
Yeah. Wow. So did you guys end up clearing all of those huts, and is that where you came across cell phones and footage and all that?
So the cell phones they must have found later. I think maybe the Fox, I don't know. The cell phone just kind of like came up. I'm not sure where they found that. I didn't find the phone. But my buddy, my teammate and I tried, and we're starting, it's just me and him. And I think we had like one other commando that we can get to actually go with us. So now it's me and my teammate and then one commando, and we're getting deeper and deeper into these like maze of huts. And we're like, this is bad.
Yeah.
I was like, we're going to get schwacked in here, and then we're going to have to pull each other out all the way back to the vehicles. So I was like, we're done. We'll call it. So we actually lied and said, all clear. We cleared all of them, even though we were only like probably like halfway through. So, and then we went back to the vehicles and we're like, all right, let's exfil. And then as soon as we started exfilling it, all hell broke loose. As the RPGs started coming, and they were lighting us up with, you know, whatever left they had.
Did you guys end up getting them, essentially smoking them out, or did you guys just bounce out?
No, we just ended up bouncing at that point. I'm sure maybe the aircraft was able, because we were shooting back all the way on the way out. You know, the 50s were letting them have it.
Yeah.
But maybe the aircraft got a few on the way out, but we didn't do any BDAs or battle damage assessments or to check for bodies.
Yeah.
We just got out of there because at the end of the day, it was like we didn't find anything, and we were just getting lit up for nothing.
Is that where the Terp getting shot and you providing cover fire, is that where the Brown Star came from?
Yeah.
Yeah. Were there subsequent missions on that deployment that were as eventful as that one?
Yeah. So the main mission, that main operation to clear that ISIS valley was a big deal. So there was a mission before where they had the Rangers go in, and they decided they were gonna, and then we were a smaller valley next to them, and the Rangers like hoofed it over the mountain instead of, you know, driving and then clearing. So by the time they got into the start of the valley to start like pushing, and they started getting lit up, they're all dehydrated, they're heat catting, and they were already smoked. So they ended up getting exfilled, and then we got the main valley on the next mission.
Oh, okay.
And then that main valley that's where it's like 2 ODAs, all their commandos separate. We ended up losing a guy on our sister team. He was a sniper, and he went to go schwack a dude. And as he slid into like a good sniper position, it was booby trapped and he got blown up.
Oh, no shit.
So then we pushed to the end of that valley by ourselves because that team didn't, obviously they had to take care of their dude and they got caught up in their gunfights. So then we pushed to the end. We started running out of gas. We started running out of supplies. We weren't getting our refills. Everything just started to kind of go wrong. And then so we're knee deep in their valley, by ourselves. And when it was supposed to be 2 ODAs, 2 companies of commandos, and Rangers up in the top providing cover or mortar fire and stuff like that, indirect fire. And then the Rangers never showed up or got sent somewhere else or something. They weren't there. And then this team, our sister team, lost a guy. So then we were by ourselves. And then that's when, the plug got pulled to not finish the rest of the clear because we were just running on E. It would have been, and to be stuck in there without the vehicles would have been a bad day.
Yeah. Did you guys stay in that area and eventually clear that valley at some point in the deployment?
So the next, we ended up, because we were there for like 3 days, we finally left. We had pushed far enough to where we felt like we made a substantial impact to get the ANA to take over these strongholds. But then the next deployment, another team ended up going back there and they stayed there for like weeks. And then our JTAC on that deployment went in with him on the second one as well. And then he got rocked and he got, was it the Air Force? Was it Silver Star?
The Navy has a Silver Star.
What's the Air Force?
I'm not sure.
Air Force Cross.
Flying Cross, maybe.
Flying Cross?
Yeah.
So he got that and was on the front of Army Times and all that stuff because he got rocked. And then they lost an ODA guy and he just kept calling and they were about to get ambushed and overran. And he schwacked. I think he killed he called them like enough to kill like 150 enemy fighters.
God damn. Is the sniper that from your sister group that was lost, is that your memorial bracelet?
No. So this one is Miguel Golan. He was a classmate. Mihail Golan, sorry, he's Russian, but he was a classmate, and then we graduated the Q course together, and then he was my senior on the B team. So I've known him for years, and he deployed after I got out and went to the police department. His very next deployment, he got killed.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
So was that mission that you just described, was that towards the end of the deployment?
That one was that was probably closer to, and I think after that one, we only went on one more.
Anything of note on that one?
On the last one? No, those guys actually didn't go on that one. That was after we had that tiff on our team.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "You're staying on this one." And I was like, "Come on, dude." And he's like, "Well, someone's got to stay back, and it's you." I was like, "Okay." I took that personally, but
yeah.
Luckily that was mild combat, so I didn't really miss out on anything. They took a couple rounds, and I think they got one dude and then came back. It wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah. Kind of looking at it from a 30,000 foot view, do you look at that deployment as a success operationally? Like, do you feel like you guys made an impact and did some good shit?
I do.
Did you guys ever have any dogs with you?
We did.
Can you describe any of those fucking stories?
So that
any good bites from the dogs?
So Khan was the main dog. That dude was a monster machine. We loved him. Khan, he chewed off his own tail. He was just he was a savage.
Yeah.
And his handler was also savage. He was just a longtime Green Beret. Just they were just two badasses. And so every time Khan was with us, your confidence went through the roof because this dog is no joke. Because I've seen non-SF dogs, and I'm like, that's a pet.
Yeah.
And there's a difference when you have a pet and when you have a killing machine.
Oh, no shit.
And Khan was a fucking killing machine. I was afraid of him. So I didn't get to see. I know Khan did get bites. I know he got one kill where he took a dude's neck and just shredded it. But the thing about, and as the dog guys, is what I tell people is, if you want combat, you be a dog guy. Because
they're always in the hot spot.
Always. So Khan and his handler come back from 3 days of
fucking shit up.
Yeah, and then it's like, hey, we need the dog.
Yeah.
And it's like our team gets to go rest and refit and figure out what the next mission is. He's on a bird to go meet up with another team who's going on mission the next day or that night.
Yeah.
So they're just all over wherever the hotspots are. They're taken. So I know Con got some kills, but with us, he was just, you know, when he was there, it was awesome. But I didn't see him getting any like specific bites. I did get slapped in the dick for petting him though.
Yeah.
That was not fun. Yeah. So his handler was we're sitting out by the DFAC in I think we were in JBAD, and his handler was sitting to my right, and Con comes up or was sitting down, but then he like put his head on my lap, and I was looking at him, I was like, can I pet him? And he kind of looked at it and he's like, yeah, a little bit. Usually you don't touch Con, you know? And so I was like, so I pet him, and then Con started like loving it, and he started loving it like to the point where he was like kind of getting out of character, you know, of his aggressive self. And so he said, enough. And Con didn't stop the minute he said enough, and his hand came over and he went to whop Con to get his attention. He missed and he hit me right in the dick.
So you literally got dick slapped. Yeah. I thought it was a fucking figure of speech. Goddamn.
No, he missed Con and smacked me right in my cock and balls. I was like, never touching that dog again.
Oh, goddamn it.
But awesome. We loved working with them. It was badass because like, you know, you do that breach and they say, hey, pretend like the dog's not here. And you're clearing rooms, and it's like a fucking, and he's all over the place. It's awesome, man.
Yeah. Were there instances where Con was with you and he indicated on explosive IEDs or caches or anything?
I'm sure there was with other groups because the valleys were so big, we were splintered up a lot.
Yeah.
So for us, we didn't have Con a lot.
Yeah.
And
was that the only dog that you typically had?
Yeah, there was like two that were rotating the most, but we tried to get Con as much as possible just because of his experience.
Yeah.
But I remember our EOD guy was finding bombs constantly. So we tried to take him, and then Con would go with the main element.
Yeah. Do you guys typically run with Air Force CCT guys, or do you do your own shit?
No, we definitely the CCTs. That's what I meant. Sorry, not JTAG. The CCT. Yeah. Is the one that won the awards, but yeah, we absolutely they're primary, and then we'll typically have one dude as that's been to the school. Yeah, that'll be as a backup. Yeah, so he's running his two radios in case the CCT goes down. He could communicate with the aircraft.
I gotcha. Yeah, those guys. We had one with us in Iraq. It was a fucking lifesaver, but literally, I mean,
dude, they don't sleep.
Yeah, I know
it. It's just all night long talking to those birds. It's nuts.
Yeah. No, I know it. All right, so as that deployment wraps up. What was it like coming back?
So during that deployment, I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna go do something else. Like I had felt fulfilled. Initially, I was gonna stay SF for the rest of my career. I was like, this is it. I'm happy. This is what I want to do forever. But then, you know, we had some bad experiences on the team on that deployment, and I decided I was like, you know, I don't like the feeling that this is giving me anymore. And maybe it's a childhood thing, I don't know, but when I'm not happy, like I'm gonna go find some happiness. So that's something I just don't stand for. So I was like, all right, well, you know, I don't like the vibe that this is putting off, so I'm gonna go do something else. So on deployment, I finished my bachelor's degree, and then I started applying for like FBI, CIA, police departments, and decided to move on.
What shook out from those?
Denver Police Department.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So my first choice was the Secret Service. They started a new pilot program for prior SF. They can go straight to their counter assault team. And one of the agents contacted me. He's like, hey man, you would be like one of the pilots in this program. Do you want to do it? I was like, hell yeah, I want to do it. So I went to Texas, and there were some cool dudes on that counter assault team. They're like, where's Sean at? And I was in a group of like 100 people applying to be Secret Service. He's like, where's Sean at? I was like, right here. He's like, come on, dude. And it was like a total bro setup for me. And I was like, these dudes are cool. I like this. And then I went to do the polygraph in LA
and failed miserably.
She hated me. I walked out of there like, see you never.
God damn.
Yeah.
So that didn't pan out.
And then
what did you lie about? Or didn't you? You just failed it.
I didn't. And she's like, she told me flat out, she's like, I can't get a read on you. I was like, that's not my problem, it's your problem.
Yeah.
And she was like, and then, you know, she just kept pushing, like, just tell me. And I'm like, you have the machine. You tell me.
Yeah.
If you think I'm lying about something, ask me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like any one question. It was just like, you're lying about something. Tell me what it is. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not playing this game with you. Like, I've been to SEER school. I know your little tactics, and because she tried to like bring my friends into it and people that have passed away and all these tactics. I'm like, this is the same shit in SEER school.
Yeah.
I was like, so yeah. I walked out of there knowing. I was like, well, that's a wrap on that one.
So from there, how did you go from there to Denver PD?
So there, I was doing all the hiring process at the same time. I was like, I need a job, and I'm not getting out without a job. So early, I started applying to everybody. I did the FBI test. I passed that test and moved on with them. But then the police department was the only one that was like consistent. Like, hey, you passed the polygraph. 2 weeks, you'll take this. 2 weeks from there, you'll take this. And it was just like, I always knew where I was in the process. The Secret Service, it was like 6 months before I even heard that I failed the polygraph.
Wow.
So I was like, well, based on your guys' hiring practices, this is going to pan out because this is like working so smoothly and everything. So I just went with that. And they had a full-time SWAT team. So that was a selling point for me.
Were you on it?
No.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, because I have a dog that I sold that's on the fucking Denver Metro SWAT. But
oh yeah, there's some good dudes out there.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say that I was primed to get that spot. I did all the networking, and I was always hanging out with those guys and, putting my name in the hat any way I could. But one thing that I didn't know about police SWAT teams is it takes years. Yeah. Like those guys don't have rotations off the team. They don't get off the team.
Yeah, and you don't just walk right on either.
No.
So you ended up joining the Denver PD for a period.
Yep. I got on a.
What was that like?
I got on a small. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No.
I got on a small team, which was cool for me. I was like happy to be back on a team. I just busted my butt when I was there. I was like constantly trying to get arrests. I was that guy, super, motivated and thought the job was great. Finding drugs and finding illegal guns as much as I could. And then I got a spot on a citywide impact team, and I was super stoked on that. They were like, it was a new team. So instead of being assigned to a district, you get to go all over the city, which I was like, that's amazing because some districts have the best crime. Like that's where all the crime's at. And I was in a district that didn't have the highest crime rate.
So was that the district within Denver or was it a suburb? Like were you part of Denver PD?
Yes.
Proper?
Yes.
Okay.
But in Denver, they break it up into 6 districts.
Okay.
Like District 6 is downtown, so those guys get used to being downtown. Like from District 1, which is the northwest side of Denver, if I had to go downtown, like because there were some active shooters or something, so it's everyone on deck, I'm lost.
Yeah.
So they had to break it up so you would actually learn, your street rotations and where you're at.
Yeah. So what was that experience like overall, going from being a Green Beret overseas to being a cop? Because I view that as kind of a tricky or tough road to hoe in some ways, and that from a rules of engagement standpoint, it's quite different. In terms of it's a lot more negotiations and customer service oriented as a cop. Not just default to fucking somebody up.
Right.
Did you struggle with that at all?
100%.
Yeah.
And that was, and it's exactly what you said. Like, we resort to violence, or people know that that's what we're about. So it's like, if you don't want violence, then stay away from me, or us. Not like each one of us is flying off the handle, but that's how we operate. So when I was a cop, and people, I was a new cop, and people come up and like, "What are you doing?" Like,
fuck you, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, none of your fucking business. I'm doing my job. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
And that tripped me out because I can't believe that cops just have random people come up. And my training officer was like, dude, you can't tell them to go fuck themselves. I'm like, well, why not? Like, it's none of their damn business. And he's like, dude, it's customer service now. And I was like, this sucks. But my thing was I held off for the small team experience. I was like, once I get there, it'll be better. And it was better. The one thing on the other hand, that surprised me about the police department is, dude, that they're getting in gunfights like on the regular. And that shocked me because I'm like, I'm coming from special forces. I've been in some gunfights. Like, that'll probably be a thing of the past. And I was like, oh, hell no. I got to Denver and was like, my district alone had like 5 shootings in a couple months. And I was like, man, these guys are shooting. Like one of my classmates, I think 2 of my classmates have been shot. A rookie, but he's not a rookie anymore, but dude behind me got shot in the guts and almost died with a rifle in a basement. Like they're getting to some no shit. My buddy just got stabbed a couple weeks ago in his lung. I think maybe it didn't hit his lung. He got a good stabbing though. I think it was armpit. A girl just came up and he was arresting her boyfriend. He came up and she just started shanking him. And, so it's like, I think that was shocking for me is like how much these city cops are really getting into some shit.
Yeah. You're not still there, are you? Or
No.
What was the process with which you decided to leave there?
The riots.
Oh,
with the George Floyd riots. So, I got on this team and I was like, man, this is what I wanted to do. We're going after gangsters and I love that. I love that cat and mouse game with gangsters because it's like, it's fun, right? They know you're a cop and you got your job to do and they got their job to do. So you guys just play this back and forth, trying to get their guns and they're trying to hide them. And so I was having a good time with that. I really enjoyed, working a lot with the gangsters and stuff and trying to get them. But then George Floyd happened and we all came to the office the next day and they were like, did you see what happened? And we're like, no. And they pulled up the video of George Floyd. I was like, fuck. We knew instantly that it was going to get bad for us. And that's what started to shift my mindset. I'm like, here I am doing everything that I can to do right. I haven't had one complaint in like 3 years. One complaint. I treat people with respect. I do my absolute damnedest out here every day. And now because this dude did something that was dumb, I'm going to feel the effects on it. My team's going to feel the effects on it. We're going to get treated like shit. I was like, that's not sitting right. I was like, but whatever, it's part of the job, so we'll do it. So we go in the riots, and it's game on. Like they're trying to overrun the police districts. They're throwing Molotov cocktails at us. They're throwing rocks at us. I'm watching cops just drop left and right because they're taking boulders to the ankles. I'm like, one of those hits me in the face, I'm dead. And then the mob, they get so unruly and they feed off each other like animals. So I'm like, if I fall and one of them starts kicking me, I'm going to get stomped out. I'm going to get stomped to death because you'll find yourself surrounded with 3 cops and you're surrounded by an angry mob and rocks are flying in from every which way. And then, cops are getting hit on the RDVs, the rapid deployment vehicles. You just stand on the ledge so we can get there and jump right off and jump back on. And all of a sudden we're getting radio messages that the people are targeting us with their vehicles and they just hit 2 cops and they're going to the hospital. And then the SWAT team was clearing one of the streets in the SWAT were the only ones, and this is something that's dumb about the department is I understand they're trying to mitigate risk, but only certain people are allowed to use like gas. So the SWAT teams are the only ones that could use the gas, and that's the shit that is really what works. You shoot someone with a pepper ball, they're like cough, they wipe it, and then they're right back throwing stuff at you. But the CS at least clears them out, gives you some space. So SWAT's trying to move a crowd back, and all of a sudden I hear screeching, and then boom, a SUV slams into a car to open up an entrance and starts heading for the whole group of SWAT guys who are facing that way. So I turn back and I look at him. I'm like, I'm gonna kill him because he's about to mow down 6 dudes. I can't see their faces, but I'm sure some of them are friends of mine. I was like, ain't gonna happen. So I pulled my gun out and he's headed right towards me. And I was like, and technically our policy is that if somebody's headed at you in a vehicle, you don't shoot them, you just move. But to me, I was like, I'm not letting those dudes get hit. So I was about to shoot him in the face. And then he looked at me, he looked at my gun and then skirt back onto the street from the sidewalk and then took off until the car broke down because it was all torn up and flat tires. But it was that for like 15-hour days, day in and day out. Like we didn't get a day off for, 9 days of just, hey, come back, go home, sleep, come back, suit up and get your ass back down to the riots. Because the marchers will take the day. And as soon as the sun goes down, all the riders come out, and it's game on.
Yeah. So you did that for the better part of 2 weeks, and then was it at that point you said, "Fuck this"?
No. So I was pretty comfortable in that environment. I felt fine, and then I was like, "This is what SF trains to do. You go in, you got some hairy stuff, and you deal with it. And whatever you got to do, you do it." And I was like, "This is cool. I don't mind it. You know, I'm shooting with pepper balls. Like, what? They're fine. And it wasn't until after that one of my teammates had shot a pepper ball. He's on the side of the truck and it's moving. And he looks up and you could see rocks coming in. He looks up and shoots with one hand a pepper ball. The air was running out, so it comes low and hits this dude's phone out of his hand. And so the video looks terrible because it's like pepper ball smack, and then the phone goes flying. When in reality, he was fine. He said, "Oh, yeah, I got glass in my eye or something." So what bothered me was the chief then was like, saw the video on the news and then told the news that that he wants to open an investigation on my teammate without talking to my leadership, without talking to my lieutenant, my sergeant, asking my teammate what happened. Hey, did you do that on purpose? Like, what happened that day? Tell me about it. Nothing. He just goes out and says, "Oh, we're opening a full out investigation." And there was like so now my teammate's stressed every single day because he knows like there's a lawsuit, you know, he's on a federal lawsuit and the department's not having his back. The chief doesn't have his back. And that's when I was like, you don't support your cops? You're going to tell us to go do whatever we got to do to protect the city. And then once we do it, you're not going to have our backs? Like, nope. Man, I'm not playing that game. Yeah. I'm not going to jail for a job.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how good the pay is. I'm not going to jail for it.
Yeah. Were there a lot of other cops that did the same thing as you? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people were in the drop. So once you go in the drop, you could retire within 5 years whenever you want. So a lot of guys will go in the drop. So but they'll stay to keep that retirement going up, you know, the percentages. A ton of cops that were in the drop were like, nope, I'm out. And then cops started resigning. They started looking for other jobs. I know, like, my whole team was like, where could we work? Like, that's what morning conversation would be like. Is the fire department hiring? Like, what, you know, is there any, what other jobs can we do? And that was normal talk within the police department after the riots started to cool down and we saw how the department was treating us. Yeah. It was, the normal talk was like, what are we going to do? Like, how do we get out of this job?
You know, ballpark what the percentage of the force was lost in that couple of month period?
I don't know the percentages, but I remember them talking like, they were like, oh, we lost like 400 or something like that. Like, the number was really, really substantial.
Yeah. What is your take on the riots and I guess more importantly from a cop's perspective, having, you know, done everything that you've done and even as a kid mixed it up with cops and just kind of your life experience, where does your perspective fall in terms of the actual cops that arrested George Floyd and the way that they handled that? What is your take on it?
Okay, so the rookies are rookies. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. And I would like to say that, you know, rookies will watch a senior cop and be like, dude, stop. But that's not the environment that you're in. Like, if that's a senior cop, you shut your mouth and you learn. Like, they're so confused and lost as to what's happening. They're not even making sense of like the what's taking place. They literally have no idea what's going on. Being a rookie cop is so overwhelmingly confusing. You don't even, like, 99% of your job is trying to figure out where the hell you are. Yeah. Let alone if a decision or an act is right or wrong. Like, you're just completely lost. So those guys, the rookies, anyway, the main cop, I think he was an asshole. I don't think he was racist, right? And here's the thing. And then, so I just finished my master's, and one of the last things I wrote about was, because, you know, they wanted you to pick something in an organization that needs fixing. And it's like, to me, what I wrote the paper about was that police officers are struggling with PTSD and they're struggling with burnout. And they have all kinds of issues that are untreated, and they're disconnecting from humanity to protect themselves and to deal with their mental illnesses that they've undoubtedly. You can't be a cop in a big city and not have these issues, right? But as far as that cop, I think he was being an asshole. I think his ego got the best of him, and people started telling him to stop. And so he's like, screw you, don't tell me what to do. And on top of that, he's within policy. They were allowed to put their knee on their neck. Does that make it right? Hell no. Obviously, like, you did it too long. Like, once you have them pinned, cuff them up and sit them up. but he's being a dick. He's probably suffering from a shit ton of burnout. He is miserable from, dealing with the same kind of people for, I think he did for like he was like 17-year vet, right?
I'm not sure. But.
So that's kind of my perspective is I think there's a bigger issue and that it's not racism. We do have an issue. We do. And that needs to be corrected. And that's cops need to get the help that they deserve dealing with their PTSD. They need to get help with dealing with burnout and to deal with their disconnecting from, their emotions because they want to protect themselves from what they're dealing with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
We need to have rotations, almost like a team room. Police officers should not be on the streets that long dealing with this stuff overnight. It should be rotated out. So I do think there's a lot of issues. I think we're mislabeling the root cause as racism.
Yeah. What was the time frame from when you said, all right, fuck this, to when you were no longer a cop?
Months.
Yeah.
Once I made that decision, my wife was cool with it, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna move on to do something else. And she's like, what are you gonna do? I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna
go back to the tanning salon.
Yeah, I'm gonna go write a book and start a YouTube channel, and give me some time. That's what I asked her for, because we're very frugal people. We don't spend a lot of money. We don't have debt and things like that. So it was like financially, we have time. Yeah. Like we could afford time. So I was just like, give me some time to figure out something that will make me happy. I was like, because I want to be in a spot that I enjoy what I do every day.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. And I started the YouTube channel and I wrote the book, and money started coming in. I didn't think about money, but it started coming in, and now this is what I do. I guess I'm a YouTuber. It sounds so stupid.
I'm a YouTuber. No, I think it's cool because I mean you've when I look at your life's trajectory, there's a recurring theme of early on, obviously overcoming childhood trauma and circumstances that are detrimentally impactful on kids, on any human beings going through that, but especially in your formative years, brain development wise. But that it doesn't stop there, is that you continue to live your life in a manner with which your goals typically drive everything else, which I think is a very successful and important way for most people to live, the goal and then plan. I've done the same thing, really my entire life also. And I think when I look at the parallels between a lot of the most successful people that I know and everybody else, the most successful people I know all kind of have that, they've got the big picture of what they want to do, and then they figure out a way to make it happen, whereas I think a lot of people, and this is not a knock on anybody that doesn't live that way, but I think most people live by the mantra of safe first. Like, I need something that's going to give me a standard of living and a way of life and let me pay my bills and all that other stuff. And then maybe on a rainy day, I'll take a pipe dream shot at something, and that never fucking works, Yeah. You kind of have to burn your boats, so to speak, at the shoreline and say, this is what I want. Now, how the fuck am I going to get there?
Yeah.
And I admire that about every step of the process that you've lived your life. One of the things that I wanted to talk about in terms of the childhood trauma and a lot of people, I think nowadays we live in a very victim heavy mentality lifestyle for a lot of people, or we live in a society where there are victims everywhere. Mm-hmm. And where, it's almost like, it seems like it's a fucking competition to see who can out-victim the other person and get the woe is me sympathy train, on their side, so that everybody feels sorry for them. It seems like there's more and more people where that's their life, is complaining about the fucking hand that they've been dealt. What I would love to get your take on is, how do you reconcile, shitty things happen to everybody. Some people way more and some people way less. And one thing you actually say in your book that I tell my kids fucking constantly, anytime they bitch about anything, is that, I don't care who the fuck you are, there is always going to be somebody with a way better deal than you, but there's always going to be somebody with a way shittier deal. And how you interpret those is irrelevant. The fact is focus on what you can focus on, and don't worry about the fucking rest. There's a lot of things that you can't control. But what I'd love to get your opinion on is how do you kind of find that happy medium of dealing with things that have happened and not just pushing them down, because that's for fuck sure not healthy, but not focusing on them so much to where you're in this closed loop of I'm a fucking victim and feel sorry for me and I need people's help all the time or I'm never going to make it.
Yeah, and it's so vital. Like, but for me, it was like, it just comes down to a simple, how do you feel when you wake up? Like, are you happy or are you not? Because at the end of the day, if you want to take that victim road, you're going to keep waking up in that same fucking spot. And
For sure. I guess to me, the tricky part though is, you know, yourself as an example, like there were some pretty legitimate things that happened to you, very unhealthy mentally, things that happened to you as a kid that do have to be dealt with. Like you can't just fuck it. I mean, there are people that do that and can, but most people can't. You know, at some point it's going to resurface somewhere, whether it's with your kids, your spouse, or you're going to be into some weird fucked up shit or have nightmares. I mean, whatever it is, like that stuff's not going to go away if it's not processed and dealt with. I can appreciate and respect the fact that has to happen. How do you manage to do both? How do you deal with it, get rid of it, move on, and then ultimately be successful? Or how have you managed to do that?
So I think what's happened to me is like throughout the process, I fuck a lot of things up. And then so it's a ton of micro adjustments all the time. And I'm still making them and I still do them, whether it's, you know, road rage or temper or, you know, not seeing things from a good perspective, which is something that I struggle with. Like someone cuts me off. Well, he was doing that personally towards me. Or this is something that my current adjustments are. Think about some alternatives. Think about some less personal alternatives to why that person did what they're doing. So it's honestly, it's a process that I think will never end for me. And for a lot of people, they probably try and then they fail and then they think, well, I'm stuck and this is how I have to be. But in reality, it's a long, slow process of micro adjustments. And then the biggest thing that's helped me is when I mess up in my journey and I take like 2 steps back, I used to just destroy myself. I'd beat myself up and be like, you can't do it. You failed. You look at, you're doing the same thing again.
You suck, jackass.
You're the worst. Right. But now it's like, you know what? Yeah, I messed that up. I did. But I'm a broken person. I got a lot of shit. You know, I got a lot of baggage. So, hey, Sean, relax, dude. It's okay. You try better next time. Look in the mirror and give yourself some fucking credit, you know?
Yeah.
And that's taken me years. Honestly, the past couple years in the start of that book is the first time I've looked in the mirror and I've gave myself a little credit of the mistakes that I made. It's easy to have a list of achievements, like, but those things don't make me feel any better. What makes me feel better is when I look in the mirror and it's like, you messed up. Relax, take a breath, shake that one off, you know, and figure out a way to not do it again or you know, make it a little better next time.
Yeah.
But giving myself some credit has probably been the best thing I think I've ever done.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. And I think one of the things you write in here about emotion, I want to read because it certainly resonated with me because I know, you know, when I was the father of young kids, it was probably the biggest struggle that I had was knowing when to back off, you know, and not be as hard on them as I was, say, on brand new white shirt fuck jobs that were showing up as SEAL candidates and not towing that same line of kind of, you know, trying to raise disciplinary little kids. And I found myself having a hard time controlling the emotion of taking it personally when they didn't do shit or they lied to me or blew something off, because I, you know, the years that I spent as a SEAL team guy, that shit is, you know, as an individual, like that doesn't fly. But then also, especially as an instructor, like you've got, you know, the classes start with 200 plus candidates, and you know, the way that they interact with you is very specific and it's very respectful and very disciplined, and you don't take an ounce of shit from them, you know, and they don't even dream of offering you any attitude either. And so for me, that was a hard thing to do. But
You talk about the level of discipline that it takes in terms of controlling your emotions, and I thought this was really good and worth reading. This is a level of discipline that has taken me my entire life to begin to understand. Pay attention to anyone who struggles in life, and it will not take long to see that they reveal their emotions clearly and accurately. They are incapable of deception when it comes to how they feel at every moment. Emotions themselves are powerful. However, your ability to control them is key. If everyone knows how you feel all the time, life becomes extremely difficult to control. You become a victim to your emotional responses, and this is how I spent nearly my entire life. To me, that there is no better paragraph, I think, that exemplifies both how important it is and the impact that it has. And one of the things that I've said for a number of years now, having learned it the hard way, is that, when you lose control of your emotions, you're handing the ability to control them over to whoever it is that's pushing your buttons, and now they have that over you, and that's a powerless fucking position to be in. But I really like the way that you worded that in that paragraph, because I think that's such an important component for people to realize just how necessary it is to be able to control your emotions. What you got anything to add?
No, I appreciate you reading that part. It is so vital, and I think what happens to guys that grew up similar to the way that I grew up is they get so used to it, becomes the norm to constantly, like you said, give other people the control of their emotions. And then when they get taken advantage of, they think they go back to that victim mindset.
Yeah.
Why does this keep happening to me? Why does this always happen to me? Why did every time I find myself in a good spot, I'm back to where I started?
Yeah.
And it's like, you're giving everyone that reason. You're doing that to yourself, because every time you get mad, you give it to that person. You run them off the road. You cuss at them. You tell everyone how you feel all the time.
Yeah.
You can't. You give the keys to your vehicle to everybody you come in contact with.
Yeah. Well, and that leads me into the next and last thing that I want to read from excerpt wise out of your book. You're reflecting on a moment back when you were sitting in the rain on your dad's porch, and you kind of came to the conclusion that that it's okay to feel the way that you were feeling. And I think that's an important part of it too, is that when it comes to controlling your emotions, you're not denying how you're feeling, you're just controlling it, and to me, that there's just one sentence, but that moment was powerful for me, allowing me to stop fighting for a second and accept the way that I felt. I think that's also a huge pearl of wisdom out of that scenario that you gained and then write about, in that exactly that is that it is crucial to not deny how you're feeling. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be sad, hurt, disappointed, whatever. The difference is recognize that emotion's there, why it is, but don't let that control your actions, and that's where so many people, myself included, I by no means am anywhere near on the level I would like to be all of the time. I don't think anybody is, but just how important it is to be able to actually control your actions when it comes to your emotions. Amen.
Amen. I mean, you said it better than I could say. 100% agree.
So now what you're focusing on is the book, the YouTube channel, and the F&G Academy. Is that your main gig now?
Yeah. So when we have some plans in the works, we have some for the channel to take it to the next level, and then we also have some for a call them the bro camp right now, but that's really just between me and my buddy is how we
Not
refer
anymore.
to it. Yeah. So and that's going to be a place where people can go and hang out with some SF guys. We're going to do some shooting. We're going to do some leadership mentorship and controlling your emotion mentorship, and just basically a place where people can come and do a 2-3 day seminar where, hey man, let's dig into this stuff and let's try to leave as better people and make you more equipped to accomplish your goals and achieve your dreams regardless of what those are.
So it's like man shit active retreat type
that's
of thing.
Exactly what it is.
That's cool.
And if we can do that successfully, because I know it's a fine line, but if we could truly make people come in and leave feeling more ready to attack and accomplish their goals, which comes down a lot on me right now, figuring out the past and how I was able to use that. Because it's one thing to be like, well, this is my process because it works for me, because I've developed it my whole life on accident at some parts, and then break that down into a way where you could teach it and allow people to take those keys and utilize it, for their advantage.
Oh, that's fucking great. Do you know, is it going to be near where you live, or
It's going to be in Texas.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Well, I'll show up with some baby oil. We'll fucking party. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Peanut butter and baby oil.
Your mission's free at that point.
Shit, you may pay me to come. Where is what is the name of your YouTube channel?
That's the FNG Academy.
FNG Academy, and your Instagram and Facebook handles and all that.
Yeah, so Instagram is Sean Buck Rogers.
I got to ask, where does Buck come from?
Yeah, so I should have never brought that back into it. You know what I mean? So I walked into the team room, and then the team sergeant at the time, this dude, Chesty is what they called him. And he was like, I was like, hey, Master Sergeant, I'm the new Bravo on the team. I don't know. He's like, what's your name? And I was like, Sean Rogers. And he didn't even look at me. He's like, Rogers, like Buck Rogers. And I was like I knew at that point, right, that I had to be careful what I said, because I was dealing with like a high level intellectual human being. And I was like, this guy's got something. So then from there, it just stuck, and everyone just called me Buck.
Yeah.
And after, I was like, you know what, fuck it. We'll just roll with the Buck thing, dude.
I mean, there's for sure worse names.
Yeah.
Mitch and Christine, do you guys have any questions for old Buck here?
What are you chasing now? You wanted to prove yourself for a long time, and then it seemed like you wanted enjoyment, so you left anything that you didn't feel the enjoyment from, and you want a little bit of fear. So what is it now?
So now is this. Now is telling my story on podcasts, and doing the YouTube channel, figuring out ways to help people in the best and biggest way I can, and what's next, right? And so chasing everything that scares me. So I have a seminar coming up, and I'm terrified. Like, I don't want to. I don't know if I could speak in front of 100 people and teach them a process that I've used and honed just for me. Now I have to make it to where not only are you gaining something from it, but it's worth your money and your time. That's terrifying. So, but I know that it's the next step, and nothing has helped me more in my process of healing than helping other people. So I just got to keep doing it and keep focusing on that. And I feel like honestly, I don't even know what the end goal looks like at this point. I just am waiting. I'm allowing it to develop. And it's putting me back into positions that I even don't want to be in. My family, some of my family members are trying to come after me now because I'm telling my story. So these struggles aren't something that are just staying in the past. It's an ongoing process. But yeah, I feel like if I wake up every day and say, how could I help people today? Then I'm doing something powerful with my life, and I'm doing something meaningful to me, and I feel good about it. So every time somebody messages me or mentions like, hey man, your story helped me. Like when I first told my story on a podcast and people started finding out about it, I was getting messages about people who had been molested, who had been, had similar parents as mine, who were just like completely. I've had pro football players hit me up and talk about how they were molested, and that nobody knows about it. And it's like, in the struggles that they've went through. And it's like, this is nuts. Like there are so many broken people out there that don't tell, and they do what I did, and they just keep it to themselves. And I feel like we could do better than that. If we can empower them to realize that we're not weaker because of those experiences. We're stronger, we're better, we're faster, we're smarter. We just need to learn how to use them. Then that would be my impact. That would be what I want to do.
Did you have anything?
No, that's amazing.
So
thank you.
To follow up on that, like what would be your advice for somebody that has gone through something like that hasn't told anybody, that like what would you tell them to start that process?
I would say start writing it down. Like obviously this is extreme, right? To go out and be open about it and talk about it, and but it's a terrifying thing to put yourself out there and see what people are going to think. It's getting easier for me as like people are saying good things about the book, and they're being positive. The vast majority of people are extremely supportive, but I would say that for me, my process that really helped me, and I would recommend trying, is get pen to paper. Start writing the things out and like analyzing them as you write, and don't type it. This is kind of a weird part to it, is that you need to write it. Like that whole book started as a journal. and it reads like a journal, right? It's like my life journal right there, and that's why it's so short. But
Well, you're a young guy. Fuck.
But specifically, the act of writing it down on pen and paper, you're more careful about the words that you use.
Yeah.
They don't just vomit out because we're so fast at typing.
Yeah.
But then once you get it on paper, you start to relive certain things, and then it allows you to like break it down. And it just made me feel more comfortable because I started to see that all these like traumas that I had put in just a bad box. Once I started writing it down, I started opening it up and evaluating, and all of a sudden there was like 5 good boxes inside that bad box. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, damn, I had all these good things that came from this. And I treated all of them like they were just one big bad box because I didn't want to think about it. And now that I'm digging in, I'm like, I'm successful because my childhood was hard. Like I'm resilient because of the things that I endured. So that one big negative box that we put everything in is just packed full of gold nuggets that you need to go in and find.
Yeah.
And then you start becoming proud of yourself. And that was the turning point for me. I was like, instead of hiding my past, I started with this. I started with my car partner in the police department. I started telling him, hey man, that last call, like I grew up like that. Like that kind of hit home for me. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know that. Yeah. And then, it just kind of grew, the circle grew of who I talk to about my things. But getting it out, I promise you, it helps a lot more than people want to think about.
Just start writing it.
Just start writing it down, see what happens.
Well, and my writing does still look like vomit, by the way. No, it for sure does.
No, my writing looks like complete dog's ass, but I'm saying when you type, it's just like...
No, I know. I'm just being a smart ass. Sometimes I can't even read my own goddamn handwriting.
Me either.
Well, it's a fascinating story. In reading your book, I love the way that it's written journal-wise because it makes you really feel like you're there with you living it, which just makes it that much more powerful.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by everything that you've been through and what you've done in spite of it. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come and tell us about it, as well as writing the book. It's called Rising Above. For those of you on the YouTube channel, check that out. It's available on Amazon and everywhere else too, I'm assuming. Or
Yeah. Somebody...
Are you going to do the audiobook?
Yes. So the audiobook is in the works. I got to go back to Colorado for probably like a week. We'll record that, and then we'll expand on between chapters and get more in depth and kind of have like the question and answer thing between my buddy Steve, and because he's a high school teacher, super intellectual guy, and he's been my mentor as far as like kind of traversing this environment. Right, is like I'm used to being around team guys. We have no filter. We say what we want. We it's
largely do what we want.
Largely do what you want. So yeah, he's been my mentor to kind of hone that into a way that the general public will appreciate without just being overly offensive and So it helps a lot.
No, it's fantastic. Again, Rising Above, F&G Academy on YouTube. Is it Buck Rogers or Sean Rogers on Instagram?
Sean Buck Rogers.
Sean Buck Rogers on Instagram. Buy the book, read it. I promise you will gain something from it. I know I sure did. I'm giving both the copies that he sent to me to my children because I think it's important for them to read it for both perspective and just giving them a way to look at things that they've heard me say a lot, but I think it's important coming from multiple people. And I have no doubt that anybody reading it will find the same value in it.
I'd like to take a quick second to shout out and thank our sponsor for today's podcast, Origin Labs and Jocko Fuel. Jocko Fuel is a great product. He's got a ton of products actually within the Jocko Fuel line. The guests and I enjoy them on the show. And outside, I take a lot of the supplements. I've got some of the Origin Lab jeans, boots, gis, and it's just all around American industry. They do a fantastic job really re-revolutionizing American industry from start to finish. It's all American made, all American sourced. Everything start to finish is made right there in-house, and they really do a phenomenal job creating the products and fulfilling the whole ball of wax. They've been a huge supporter of the Mic Drop podcast for a while now, and I really can't thank Jocko Fuel and Origin Labs enough for the job that they do for us, and so thank you to you guys. I'd like to take a second to shout out our newest sponsor, which is Project Warpath. This is a Navy SEAL-owned company that provides apparel with a pretty edgy feel, and it's a good friend of mine that runs it out of California. and just overall a great outfit. They've got a whole line of different shirts, one of which is arguably my favorite, which is Epstein didn't kill himself. Wonder where that one came from. And but yeah, there's Hillary Clinton killed my friends. There's a bunch of pretty edgy and cool patriotic sayings on T-shirts with good design, good high quality, and it's one that I'm actually wearing right now. So I appreciate them sponsoring the show. Again, that's Project Warpath. You can get all their stuff online, and the shipping and customer service is top notch, quality product, and you're supporting a veteran-owned business. So shout out to Project Warpath. Go check their stuff out. I'd also like to say thank you to our other sponsor, Resilience Premium CBD. Resilience is excited to offer all Mic Drop listeners a 20% off discount on all products for 2 weeks from when this podcast is live using the discount code MicDrop at checkout. That's 2 words, MicDrop at checkout. I'd also like to say that Resilience is a great company that works in conjunction with Trico CBD, and all military veterans and first responders receive 35% off. Yes, that's 35% off for all military veterans and first responders, and that's through the Military and First Responders Program. You just have to sign up at resilientcbd.com/military first responders discount. In terms of about Resilience, generally speaking, it's a premium CBD that I use. Again, it works in conjunction with the Tricos brand for the everyday athlete. That's www.resilientcbd.com. And Resilience was really born with the founders who are military veterans as well, personally experienced the effects and impact that CBD had on their own mental and physical obstacles. Their focus was sharper, mental stress was calmed, fitness stamina increased, and their bodies felt less pain, inflammation after super intense workouts. A lot of times most people and people are able to either wean off entirely or significantly reduce pain management therapy. This is a shared vision among the founders that this incredible supplement had not only changed their lives, but had the power to provide unbelievable benefits to family, friends, athletes, fellow veterans, and ultimately the entire fitness community. So big shout out to Resilience for their product as well as the Trico stuff. We sure appreciate their support. To the listener, I know I say this every episode, but I'm going to look you straight in the face, asshole, and I'm going to say I appreciate you guys. I really can't thank all of you enough that tune in episode after episode and give me that time, because I know there's a shitload of podcasts and shows and Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and all that other shit that people can be spending their time consuming entertainment, if you want to call it that. And I appreciate you guys spending the amount of time that you do paying attention to my dumb ass. So without further ado, until next time, this is Mic Drop.